tale kicks off in the rugged, sprawling landscape of Kin Nui Mountain, where Toad Ridge clings dramatically to the heights like a smug monarch surveying its domain. Below it lay Toad Village, a settlement so abandoned it might as well have had tumbleweeds rolling through its empty streets. In this forlorn place, a man was recounting tales of their glory days to his equally disheartened companion. "Back when the old leader was alive," he said, voice tinged with nostalgia. "We were so powerful even the bandits feared us. But now, with him gone, the others ditched the new master faster than rats leaving a sinking ship. Just us two left. And the officers? They're coming soon to clean up the bandits. We can't defend ourselves, let alone survive. Better leave while we still can." His companion nodded grimly. Then, as if on cue, a man strutted out of a nearby house, his clothes draped across a pole like he was airing his grievances through his fashion choices. An 18-year-old kid as a leader? What were they thinking? He declared, voice dripping with disdain. "You all planning to bail on him too? Fine, get lost. I'll lead the exodus myself." He grinned, made a dramatic exit, and disappeared over the horizon. The remaining two shared a bemused glance before shrugging and following suit. Meanwhile, in the village's most intact building, Chongdale slumped into a wooden chair beneath a threadbare tigerskin rug. His hand clutched his head as he winced at the flood of unfamiliar memories. "It hurts," he groaned. "What is this? Did I get transported to another world?" Not long ago, Chongdale had been an average university student, blissfully glued to his computer while playing Hearts of the Mountain Bandits. One moment, he was strategizing with headphones on. The next, he blacked out, only to wake up in this bizarre place. His current body and the memories it came with were merging in his head, creating a jumbled mess of confusion. The memories painted a bleak picture. Toad Village, once thriving, was now a sinking ship, and he'd inherited the title of village master after his father passed away. Dawu, the empire under which the village fell, had ruled both land and sea a century ago. Now it was a fading relic, plagued by constant wars that drove its people to the brink. Banditry was no longer a choice, it was a last resort. Toad Village had been a powerhouse under its old leader, but since his death, it had crumbled. Chongdale was convinced he was the last man standing. "Great," Chongdale muttered to himself. "A poor, abandoned village and an empty tiger skin. Just my luck." Suddenly, a hand clasped his shoulder, making him jump. Turning, he saw Zhu Shinji, Toad Village's self-proclaimed strategist. Chongdale was stunned someone had stayed. Overcome with gratitude, he grabbed Zhu Shinji's hand. "Thank you for staying. I'll never forget this favor," he declared. But Zhu Shinji blinked, looking puzzled. "Oh no, there's been a misunderstanding," he said with a grin. "I'm just here for the last of the resources, a skinny horse no one wants. Mind if I take it? Oh, and the tiger skin rug too? It's chilly out there." Chongdale stared at him, mouth agape, his spirit crumbling like a cookie. "Take it?" he croaked, slumping back into his chair. Zhu Shinji beamed as he rolled up the rug. "Thanks, boss. Linger. Grab the horsewear out of here," he called out before skipping off to join his partner. Chongdale watched them disappear into the distance, leaving him utterly alone in the eerie silence of Toad Village. As he sat there brooding, a strange symbol shimmered into existence behind him. Out of nowhere, a hand emerged from the glow and delivered a sharp smack to the back of his head. "Ow! What the dash?" Chongdale shot up, spinning around to confront his unseen assailant. But the world around him had transformed. Gone was the dilapidated village. In its place was a vast, pixelated expanse of floating sparkles. A figure materialized before him, a blonde woman with flowing hair and diamond-shaped antennae perched atop her head. Her cyan eyes sparkled with an almost otherworldly light as she smiled warmly at him. "Brave young man," she said, her voice lilting and melodic. "You've finally arrived." Chongdale stared at her, utterly dumbfounded. What is going on here?" he stammered. The woman merely chuckled, her expression unreadable. It seemed his adventure was just beginning. Chongdale, wide-eyed and still reeling from the surreal scene, asked the blonde girl the obvious questions. "Who are you? And where am I?" The blonde girl smiled, her hand lifting to reveal a glowing blue diamond hovering just above her palm. "This," she said with a flourish, is the system's subspace. And me? I'm the spirit of the system, your personal guide. The diamond began to pulse with energy, rising above Chengdale's head as if it had a mind of its own. The spirit clapped her hands as if applauding his progress. Congratulations on opening hearts of the mountain bandits, young master. Before Chengdale could respond, the diamond erupted into a dazzling burst of light, flooding the space with radiant ripples. A blue screen materialized before him, displaying a loading bar. Chengdale squinted at the screen, his mind snapping back to memories of the game he'd been playing just before being hurled into this strange new world. As if reading his thoughts, the blonde girl nodded. Yes, that's exactly it. You're here because of that game. And now, I'm here to help you. Her tone, though sweet, carried an ominous weight. Your Toad Village is in bad shape. Barely anyone left, just you, a strategist and a groomer. Oh, and the horses, but they don't count as residents. Chengdale gawked at the screen, realization dawning. A system? I have a system. Excitement mingled with disbelief as a mission appeared on the screen. Objective: do not let the population drop to 1. Stop the villagers from leaving. The warning was clear. Failure meant the system would vanish. Suddenly, Chengdale was enveloped in a bluish glow, the spirit's voice taking on a more serious tone. Complete this mission, or regret it forever. There won't be a second chance. As the integration with the system continued, Chengdale felt beams of light pierce his body, filling him with an overwhelming energy. The spirit chuckled, calling him a boy brimming with potential, while gesturing to the screen. Another mission popped up, urging him to stop both the strategist and the groomer from abandoning the village. Chengdale frowned, unsure how to start. I'll try, but how do I leave this subspace? The spirit grinned mischievously. Oh, that's easy, she said before grabbing him by the collar and hurling him into the air like a sack of potatoes. There you go. Wait, what dash? Chengdale's scream echoed through the ether as he plummeted. His eyes watered, and his breath hitched as he landed with a jarring thud on the floor of his home. Drenched in sweat and trembling, he muttered, "Was that real, or just a nightmare?" A voice whispered in his ear, icy and unnerving. "Fail and you'll die." Fear seized Chengdale, his wide eyes darting around the room as sunlight streamed through the windows. Scrambling to his feet, he ran out of the house, calling for Zhu Xinji. "Zhu! Strategist Zhu!" His voice cracked with urgency as he raced into the forest, eventually spotting the man with his daughter and the horse. Desperate, Chengdale skidded to a stop, gasping for air. "Wait! Please wait!" Zhu Xinji turned, eyebrow raised. "Changed your mind, village master? Ready to take back your words?" Chengdale opened his mouth to respond but found himself distracted, his gaze locking onto Zhu's companion. The young woman stood confidently, her hand resting on her hip as she smirked. "Father, why are you even humoring him? Let's just leave," she said, her tone dripping with impatience. Flushing, Chengdale stammered. Who is this?" He turned to Zhu Xinji for an answer. "Oh, her? That's my daughter, Zhu Lingyi," the strategist replied casually. "She's in charge of the horses. I guess you've never met her." As Zhu Lingyi shot him an exasperated glance, Chengdale thought privately, "She's beautiful." Shaking off his distraction, Chengdale clutched Zhu Xinji's arm with uncharacteristic fervor. "Father Dash," he winced, quickly correcting himself. "I mean, strategist Zhu. I have an idea." Zhu Xinji raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "An idea, huh?" Chengdale nodded earnestly. "You've worked tirelessly for this village for years. Without you, it wouldn't even exist. I can't let you leave. You've contributed too much. Stay, please. The village needs you." For a moment, silence hung in the air. Zhu Xinji studied Chengdale, his expression unreadable, while Lingyi tapped her foot impatiently. Finally, Zhu Xinji sighed. "Fine. Convince me." Chengdale gritted his teeth. He had no idea how, but he knew he couldn't let the mission fail, not when his life was on the line. Zhu Xinji's face flushed with anger, assuming Chengdale had resigned himself to dying alongside them. But he steadied his voice and said calmly, "I'm not leaving because I'm old and useless. I'd only weigh you down." Chengdale, however, wasn't about to accept that. With fire in his eyes, he countered, If that's how you feel, then I absolutely can't let you go. As long as I'm alive, no one will go hungry." He leaned in, his tone growing serious. "Besides, what village would take us in now? We're better off staying here and carving out our own path." Zhu Xinji sighed, exasperated. "And how do you expect us to survive if we stay?" Grinning, Changdale replied, "What's there to be afraid of?" Then, with a mischievous glint in his eye, he turned to Zhu. "Hand me a weapon I've got someone to rob." Zhu blinked in disbelief. "Rob? Are you serious?" Ignoring him, Changdale discreetly grinned, inwardly wondering what kind of reward the system might give him for completing such a bold move. Then his thoughts wandered to Zhu Linger, who had been watching silently. Trying to mask his blush, he inquired about her age, but his mind, already veering off track, began picturing himself as the dashing, overpowered protagonist from his past life. Linger's annoyed voice snapped him back to reality. She was hauling an enormous axe toward him, her expression unimpressed. "Here," she said flatly. Changdale broke into a nervous sweat. "This is my weapon?" His dreams of a sleek sword or a legendary spear shattered as he stared at the unwieldy hunk of steel. Gripping it awkwardly, he tried to picture himself as a hulking giant with rippling muscles and an axe, but the image only made him feel like a woodcutter. Just then, a glowing blue pop-up appeared before him. Mission complete. Prevent Zhu Xinji and Zhu Linger from leaving. His reward? An axe skill book. The spirit of the system appeared out of nowhere, handing it to him with a playful smirk. Wasting no time, Changdale integrated the skill, his mind flooding with visions of perfect chops, precise swings, and the raw power of legendary axe techniques. Zhu Xinji watched him warily. "It's dangerous to go alone, you know?" Changdale stared blankly at him for a moment, leaving Zhu puzzled. Then, to his surprise, Changdale broke into a grin. "That's why you're coming with me." "What?" Zhu Xinji balked, clearly caught off guard. With the axe slung over his shoulder and an air of mock seriousness, Changdale turned to Zhu. "Got anything else to say?" Zhu Xinji sighed. "No, nothing at all." "Good." Changdale grinned as he started leading the horse down the mountain. Zhu followed reluctantly, muttering to himself about the absurdity of it all. A new pop-up appeared. Mission: successfully carry out a robbery before nightfall. The stakes? Success granted a shot at the system lottery. Failure meant death. Zhu Xinji's face paled as he read the screen. "Village Master," he began, voice trembling. "Call me boss," Changdale corrected with a sheepish grin. The duo trekked onward, the lush greenery of the mountain giving way to a breathtaking view of the setting sun. Changdale raised his axe triumphantly, striking a dramatic pose atop the horse as it reared on its hind legs. Against the orange glow of twilight, he let out a cowboy-style whoop. Unbeknownst to them, further down the winding road, a well-armed convoy was making its way through the mountains. Soldiers on horseback flanked a richly adorned carriage. Warrior Lin, one of the escort leaders, was chatting with another soldier. "There are a lot of mountain bandits in this area. We should be careful," the soldier warned. "Let them come," Warrior Lin boomed, gripping his spear. "It's been too peaceful. I could use a good fight." The soldiers around him chuckled nervously as the group pressed on, escorting the Su family's lady to her wedding in Black Rock City. The mission was crucial, strengthening the Su family's ties to the city lord's household. Meanwhile, Changdale and Zhu Xinji stood at the edge of the road, watching the last rays of sunlight vanish. "It's getting late," Zhu murmured. "No one's coming. Let's try again tomorrow." But Changdale shook his head, determination etched on his face. "They'll come." Moments later, Zhu's doubt was erased. The convoy appeared, their armor glinting in the fading light. Changdale smirked. "There they are." Zhu Xinji's confidence wavered as he counted the armed soldiers. "There are too many of them. Let's just retreat." But Changdale grinned defiantly, lifting his arm. "Don't worry. If we die together." "Great," Zhu thought sarcastically, wiping sweat from his brow. As the convoy approached the curve in the road, Changdale's plan took an unexpected turn. Zhu Xinji, clearly desperate, jabbed the horse's rear with a stick. The startled beast neighed in panic and bolted toward the convoy, dragging a wide-eyed Changdale with it. "Toad Village is robbing you," Zhu shouted, running behind. Drop your valuables or flee if you don't want to die. The convoy soldiers exchanged incredulous looks as Chengdale's wild ride brought him hurtling closer. The lead soldier turned to Warrior Lin, shaking his head in disbelief. Is this guy serious? Lin, gripping his spear, grinned eagerly. Finally, some fun. Zhu Xinji walked away from Chengdale with tears in his eyes, muttering apologies. I'm sorry, village master, but I have a daughter to care for, to watch grow up. I'll burn incense in your memory. He quickened his pace, leaving Chengdale to face the armed convoy alone. Chengdale, still astride his nervous horse, boiled with anger. You traitor, he bellowed after Zhu. You not only abandoned me, but you also shouted to the entire world that I'm trying to rob them. His embarrassment only deepened as he recalled the nickname Zhu had thrown around, one that made him cringe inwardly. As the convoy approached, Chengdale tugged sharply on the reins, causing his horse to rear up dramatically before he managed to steady it. Relief washed over him, but it was short-lived. Now standing in full view of the soldiers, Chengdale found himself speechless and drenched in sweat. The soldiers stared at him, confused. One reached for his sword, incredulous that a single individual thought it wise to rob their well-armed group. Thinking fast or recklessly, Chengdale raised his palms slightly and said, "This is a misunderstanding. I'm not the Toad Village Master." Then, as if struck by a burst of inspiration or desperation, he clenched his fist and declared, "I'm Zhu Xinji, a scholar. Lay down your weapons and surrender if you value your lives." The soldiers exchanged bewildered glances. Instead of panicking, they burst into laughter. One soldier, struggling to contain himself, muttered, "He must want to die. Jumping off a cliff would have been less humiliating." "Enough!" barked Wang Yelta, silencing the raucous laughter. "Perhaps this fool doesn't know who we are. Listen, stranger. I suggest you think about your family and turn around before it's too late." Before Chengdale could respond, a dainty hand emerged from the carriage, pulling back a pink curtain. A striking woman with blue eyes and pink hair gazed out, curiosity flickering in her expression. Chengdale froze, mesmerized. "She's stunning," he thought, his mouth slightly agape. The system's spirit materialized above him, smacking him hard on the head. "Snap out of it, pervert," she scolded. "Focus on the task at hand." "Ow! Will you stop doing that?" Chengdale groaned, rubbing the growing lump on his head. The spirit sighed dramatically and opened a new pop-up, hidden mission. Rob someone's fiancée. She explained that the mission level was far beyond his current ability and that he could reject it. Chengdale deliberated, weighing his options. Hidden missions were rare, and the rewards were usually extraordinary. If he succeeded, he'd be one step closer to becoming a legendary bandit. Besides, the idea of securing such a beautiful wife wasn't unappealing. The spirit groaned, clearly exasperated. "You're just lusting after her, aren't you, idiot?" Ignoring the spirit's disapproval, Chengdale accepted the mission with a firm nod. "If I don't have the guts for this, how will I ever become a successful bandit?" Meanwhile, Warrior Lin sat astride his horse, watching Chengdale's antics with amusement. "Don't scare him off," he ordered his soldiers. "This one's got guts. I want to fight him one-on-one." The other soldiers cheered, eager to see Warrior Lin in action. "Don't kill him with one hit," one shouted. "Show us those famous skills of yours." Lin grinned confidently. "I'll go easy on him. Don't worry." The system's spirit opened another info box for Chengdale, highlighting Lin's identity. Name, Lin Xiaoyu. Specialty, piercing spear strikes. Hidden attribute, future hero potential. Chengdale approached Lin on horseback, his axe resting on his shoulder. "I've slain countless nameless men. Tell me your name, so I can remember it when I spare your life." Lin raised an eyebrow, smirking. "Lin Xiaoyu. And you? Are you the Toad Village Master or that so-called scholar, Zhu Xinji?" Caught off guard, Chengdale blurted out, "I'm Yong Chun E1. Lin tilted his head. "Yong Chun? There's no place like that among the 108 cities and 13 prefectures. That's a strange name." "Enough talk," Chengdale barked, raising his axe. "Your head is mine." He swung ferociously, but Lin deflected the blow with his spear, surprised by the sheer strength behind it. The two locked eyes, the tension palpable. Changdale swung again, this time with a fiery determination. The impact sent Lin tumbling from his horse, his spear spinning to the ground. Seizing the moment, Changdale spurred his horse forward, leaping down to kick the carriage driver aside. The pink-haired lady gasped in alarm. Striking the horse's rear with his axe, Changdale sent the carriage horse bolting in a wild frenzy, scattering the soldiers in its path. Chaos erupted as Wang Yulta screamed for his men to give chase. Despite their efforts, Changdale held tightly to the reins, steering the runaway carriage with an exhilarated grin. Behind him, Zhu Xinji, now safely back at Toad Village, sighed deeply. "Linger," he called wearily, "your master has truly lost his mind this time." Zhu Xinji stumbled into Toad Village, his face drenched in sweat, and promptly ordered Ling Er to shut the gates. She turned to him, worry etched across her face. "Why are you alone? Where's the village master?" Throwing up his hands, Zhu Xinji huffed. "That fool! If I hadn't been smart enough to run for my life, you'd never see your father again." He began pacing, moaning dramatically as he lamented their dire circumstances. Ling Er tried to comfort him. "Dead people don't come back to life, father. You shouldn't be upset." "Who said I was upset about him dying?" Zhu Xinji shot back, clearly scandalized. "It's the horse. It was such a fine beast." Ling Er sighed, disappointment flickering in her eyes. "Anyway," Zhu continued, "this village isn't safe anymore. Start packing up everything valuable, especially the garlic in the kitchen. We'll need it." Meanwhile, Changdale was still clutching the reins of his runaway horse as the armed troops thundered after him. "Hurry up!" he screamed at the horse, his voice cracking with panic. Out of nowhere, the system's spirit appeared, floating lazily above his head. "Hey, you just earned a lottery draw for completing a mission. Want to spin the wheel now?" Changdale glared at her. "Now? Are you out of your mind? Can't you see I'm busy trying not to die?" The spirit smirked mischievously. "So what's it going to be? Whip the horse or spin the wheel?" "Both," Changdale barked, his frustration boiling over. "If I could whip you instead, I would." The spirit remained unbothered, giggling as she snapped her fingers. A comically oversized lottery machine materialized in midair. As the spirit slowly turned the crank, Changdale fumed. "Hurry up! Those soldiers are breathing down my neck." Finally, a glowing ball popped out of the machine. The spirit opened it with exaggerated flair. "Congratulations! You've earned a great unknown hunterkin man." Changdale blinked, stunned. "Wait, the lottery gives people? Where is he?" He scanned the rocky terrain around him, half expecting Kin Man to descend from the sky or burst out of a boulder. Changdale waved his finger like a magician. "I choose you, Kin Man." Nothing happened. The spirit watched him, visibly baffled. Changdale tried again, this time flailing his hands in dramatic gestures. "Come forth, mighty warrior. Respond to my call." Still nothing. Before he could embarrass himself further, a voice rang out from the distance. "Don't worry, village master. Kin Man is here." Changdale whipped his head around to see a tall figure with long brown hair and an X-shaped scar across his chest. Kin Man stood boldly, a massive spear in hand. Kin Man wasted no time. As Warrior Lin charged toward the carriage, Kin Man hurled his spear with incredible force, striking Lin's horse square in the mouth. The beast neighed in agony, blood spraying as it lost balance and toppled to the ground with Lin still on its back. Changdale gawked, amazed by Kin Man's raw strength. The soldiers froze, stunned by the sudden turn of events. Wang Yulta, sweating profusely, attempted to rally his men. "We're soldiers of Black Rock City. Surrender the girl, or we'll destroy this village." Kin Man sneered, swinging his spear with a flourish. The blade slammed into a nearby rock, ricocheting a shard that struck Wang square in the face, knocking out several teeth. "Get lost!" Kin Man roared. Terrified, Wang ordered a retreat. The soldiers fled, leaving Changdale and Kin Man victorious. Kin Man approached Changdale. "I'm here to work for you, village master." The system spirit popped up with a new info box detailing Kin Man's tragic backstory. His wife had been pursued by the leader of Black Rock City and, unwilling to be taken, had leapt to her death. Fueled by grief and rage, Kin Man had slain several guards before becoming a fugitive. Now he sought refuge in Toad Village. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Changdale and Kinman rode back to Toad Village on horseback. Zhu Shinji, still begrudgingly packing garlic, gawked as they arrived. "Village master? You're alive!" Changdale grinned smugly. "Of course. Did you think I'd let you off the hook that easily?" Zhu Shinji fell to his knees, bowing dramatically. "Forgive me. I've been a useless burden." Changdale smirked. "Oh, you've been plenty useful. I told those soldiers your name was Zhu Shinji. They'll be looking for you now." Zhu's jaw dropped. "You what?" His fists clenched, his body trembling with indignation as Changdale laughed. "Relax, old man. I need you. Get along with Kinman, and let's rebuild this village." As the group settled in, Changdale called the system spirit to check his mission rewards. She appeared with a flourish, whacking him over the head. "Call me System Goddess." Rubbing the new bump on his head, Changdale grumbled, "Fine, System Goddess." The spirit rewarded him with a hidden awakening skill. "Choose someone to unlock their hidden potential," she explained, her hands glowing with golden light. Changdale, still trying to process the unexpected reward, muttered, "Great, more surprises." But before he could decide, the village called for his attention once again. Zhu Shinji stood before Changdalai, who couldn't help but notice a shift in the strategist's demeanor, as if his hidden attributes had finally awakened, though their usefulness remained questionable. The Kin Nu Mountains lay shrouded in moonlight, their peaks basking in an eerie, serene glow. Elsewhere, the defeated armed soldiers had set up camp around flickering bonfires. Commander Wang sat hunched near the flames, his face a mask of irritation. He turned to one of his soldiers and demanded, "Do you want to live?" "Of course, Commander," the soldier replied, nodding frantically. "Then tell me how many bandits attacked us?" The men exchanged nervous glances before one of them stammered, "100, sir." Beads of sweat formed on his brow. 100. Wang's voice rose in disbelief. "I saw 300 with my own eyes." He launched into a dramatic account of their heroic stand against overwhelming odds. "We risked our lives, fought valiantly, and killed some of them, but Warrior Lin is missing, and Miss Su was abducted." His audience, sitting silently across the fire, nodded grimly. Wang then ordered his men to wrap themselves in bandages, faking wounds for their return to the city. "We'll demand reinforcements," he declared with theatrical resolve. Meanwhile, Warrior Lin brooded quietly by a separate fire, gripping his spear tightly. His face bore fresh cuts and bruises, but the weight of failure was heavier. "I failed Commander Huang. I failed Miss Su. I'll risk everything to make this right," he vowed silently. Back in Toad Village, the system goddess interrupted Changdalai's train of thought with a pop-out box. Zhu Shinji, now labeled as a famous lousy strategist, had a hidden talent for stupid tactics guaranteed to cause failure. Changdalai sighed. "Even with hidden talents, he's useless," he muttered. "What's wrong?" Zhu Shinji asked, oblivious. "Nothing," Changdalai said with a strained smile. "What do you want?" Zhu Shinji explained that he had spoken with the captive, Miss Su Yi, the young master of Black Rock City's fiancée. "Village master, you shouldn't have taken her. Our last leader crossed Black Rock City and paid the ultimate price. If they retaliate, we're done for." Ling Er appeared just then, balancing a bowl. "Dinner's ready," she announced. Gathering the group near a bonfire, Changdalai posed the question, "What do we know about Black Rock City?" Kinman leaned forward, his tone grim. "It's 150 miles away, ruled by Han Huji, a ruthless tyrant with 5,000 elite troops." Zhu Shinji threw his hands up in despair. 5,000 against 4. What's the point? Changdalai arched a brow. "What's your brilliant idea, then? Beg for mercy?" Zhu Shinji mumbled an apology, retreating into silence. To everyone's surprise, Kinman suggested an attack. "Instead of waiting for them to come to us, we strike first. There's a 70% chance we can capture Han Huji." Zhu Shinji leaned over to Ling Er, whispering, "We're doomed." Ling Er sniffled. "We're already dead." Changdalai dismissed their defeatist attitudes. "First, they won't send all 5,000 troops. Maybe 100 or 200 at most. Second, the distance gives us time to prepare an ambush." The system goddess appeared, her grin mischievous. "New mission unlocked. Defend Toad Village." Chung Dalai continued, his voice resolute. Third, my father died fighting them. Kin Man has his own reasons for revenge. If we don't fight now, we'll never live in peace. Kin Man nodded firmly. We secure the village, no matter what. Zhu Xinji explained the two paths leading to Toad Ridge, noting that the smaller route had a valley that made it unsuitable for carriages. Chung Dalai smirked. He'll choose the wrong path, guaranteed. Which way do you think they'll come? The main road, Zhu Xinji said confidently, puffing on his pipe. Good, Chung Dalai replied inwardly. We'll take the valley. When asked if they could win, Zhu Xinji hesitated before admitting, no, we'll be wiped out. Chung Dalai grinned. Perfect. We have a chance, then. Later, Chung Dalai entered Miss Su's room, finding her seated in silence. Offering her food, he said gently, You should eat something. Miss Su looked up, startled but defiant. All men are the same, she said bitterly. You're no different. Chung Dalai sighed. I captured you to lure out Han Huji. Once this is over, you'll be free. Liar, she hissed. He turned to the window, his voice softening. Do you think I wanted this life? I dreamed of being a scholar, of crossing seas, seeing the world. The moon shone brightly through the window, its light reflecting off the tears pooling in Miss Su's eyes as Chung Dalai's words hung in the stillness of the night. Under the pale moonlight casting a silvery glow over the Kin Nu Mountains, Chung Dalai's gaze darkened as he reflected on the greedy, power-hungry people he had encountered. Why is the world like this? He mused aloud. Why are people so easily swayed by greed? Miss Su sat quietly, her calm demeanor masking her confusion. Chung Dalai extended his hand toward her, his voice filled with conviction. I want to save this world, to give the people a chance to live in peace. Will you help me achieve this dream? Miss Su hesitated, her guarded eyes meeting his. You might be lying, she admitted, but somehow I feel like you wouldn't hurt me. I don't understand why I feel this way. She paused, then added, Tell me whatever you want. As long as you don't harm me, I'll do my best to comply. Chung Dalai sat silently for a moment before settling near the table. Tell me about this world, he said softly. It was perhaps the only sincere statement he had made since entering her room. Time passed as Miss Su explained fragments of her world, revealing she was the daughter of a merchant. Chung Dalai listened intently, nodding occasionally as her words painted a picture of the struggles she had endured. When he finally rose to leave, he cupped his fist respectfully and bid her farewell. As the glow of a candle flickered in the room, Miss Su picked up a book and recited a poem. With a sword in hand, the ambitious man, to rescue the people of the occupied land. Miss Su pondered the Wu Hook, a legendary weapon, and the empire of 13 prefectures from which her ancestors hailed. These words, she thought, are beautiful lies, but they could astonish everyone at the talent poem meeting. Outside, Kin Man stood silently, his presence drawing Chung Dalai's attention. Surprised, Chung Dalai asked, What are you doing here? Do you always eavesdrop on private conversations? Kin Man cupped his fists, his voice solemn. At first, I thought you were no better than those filthy bandits. But after hearing you speak, I realized you have a dream worth following. I'll risk my life to help you achieve it. The system goddess appeared with a pop-out box. Congratulations! You've completed Kin Man's hidden mission. By treating Suing with respect, you've earned his loyalty. Kin Man has always harbored pain over losing his wife and children. Had you mistreated her, he'd have been the first to kill you. Chung Dalai folded his arms, reading the screen thoughtfully. Abducting Miss Su, it wasn't so different from what the Black Rock City leader did. Gaining Kin Man's loyalty wasn't just luck, it was a delicate balance of trust. The next morning, Ling Er burst into the room, breathless. Village Master, someone is attacking the village. Chung Dalai shot up in alarm. Already? How many are there? Blushing, Ling Er stammered. Just one. He has a spear, and he's kind of handsome. Outside, Warrior Lin sat astride his horse, bellowing, Dirty bandits, face your demise. If you've harmed Miss Su, I'll kill you all. Chung Dalai and his crew stepped outside. Scratching his head, Chung Dalai muttered, This idiot came alone? He waved lazily. Kin Man, chase him away. As Kin Man approached, Warrior Lin called out, Bring your weapon. I won't take unfair advantage. Kin Man smirked. No need. In a blur, Kin Man leaped high, landed on Lin's horse's head, and grabbed Lin's face with his bare hand. Warrior Lin froze, dumbfounded. You're weak, Kin Man declared, raising his hand. Let me go, Lin yelled, flailing. Kin Man hurled him off the horse, sending him flying into the trees. Lin tumbled to the ground, shouting, I'll be back. Watching Lin's retreat, Chang Dalai sighed. Don't harass him when he returns. Let him take his horse. Kin Man nodded. As you command, village master. Suddenly, the system goddess appeared, presenting Chang Dalai with a golden-lined chest. Congratulations! You've defended the village. Chang Dalai stared at the reward screen, bewildered. That was it? Shouldn't this mission have been harder? The goddess smirked. Bug or no bug, it's not my problem. Just take the rewards. The rewards poured in. A metal spear, upgraded horses, healing effects within the mountain, 10 farming lands, and more. Chang Dalai rubbed his sore legs, muttering, It's like killing an ant and winning the lottery. Moments later, the goddess appeared again. New mission. Defend against the second attack. The difficulty level exceeds your current power. Chang Dalai grimaced. The real battle is coming. Meanwhile, Warrior Lin, battered but determined, climbed back up the mountain. Zhu Xinji grumbled. Let's kill him this time. Chang Dalai glared at him. You idiot. Lin is our benefactor. No one's killing him. As Lin shouted taunts from afar, Chang Dalai called out cheerfully, Are you hungry? Want to come in and eat? Our food's pretty good. Zhu Xinji's jaw dropped in confusion. Lin planted his spear in the ground. Enough nonsense. Come at me. Chang Dalai sighed, ordering Kin Man. Don't kill him. Be gentle. Kin Man nodded. Understood. Moments later, Kin Man launched a single strike, sending Lin flying again. Chang Dalai jogged over. Are you okay? Rest up and come back when you're better. The system goddess reappeared, rewarding Chang Dalai with a mountain spring, healing pills, bonus village skills, and more. Chang Dalai couldn't help but grin. If the rewards keep coming like this, I might just survive. Under the glowing amber hues of a fading sun, Chang Dalai sat back, unimpressed by the cascade of rewards the system had presented him. Mediocre, he muttered, staring at the list that paled in comparison to his earlier spoils. Meanwhile, Warrior Lin trudged up the steep path toward Toad Village, leaning heavily on a wooden staff. His disheveled appearance triggered yet another defense mission, the third one in as many days. When he reached the village gates, Chang Dalai greeted him with a raised eyebrow. You okay, Lin? Not until Miss Su is free, Lin growled, his face battered with bumps and bruises, several teeth conspicuously missing. Despite his condition, his resolve was unshaken. I'll keep coming back, he declared. Chang Dalai sighed, waving Kin Man over. Be gentle this time. With a single, restrained punch, Kin Man knocked Lin flat, completing the third defense mission. The rewards poured in once more, but it wasn't over. Lin returned again, each appearance triggering yet another mission and another set of rewards. By the 10th defense, Ling air tugged at Chang Dalai's sleeve, pouting. Can we go inside now? I'm hungry. Not yet, Chang Dalai replied, eyes fixed on the horizon. He's not done with me. As the system goddess materialized, a pop-up box announced a hidden attribute Chang Dalai had unlocked, an aura of charisma that increased loyalty among males but was entirely ineffective on females. She explained that his kind-heartedness would draw righteous warriors to his side, especially idealistic youths. Chang Dalai groaned. Why do I have to be the nice guy? Still, he couldn't shake his concern. Warrior Lin's absence lingered too long, and Chang Dalai found himself worrying. Did something happen to him? He wondered aloud. Against the protests of his companions, he ventured down the mountain to search. As the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon, Chang Dalai found Warrior Lin standing at the edge of a cliff, gripping his wooden staff with trembling hands. Tears streaked his face as he stared into the abyss. I wanted to be a hero, Lin whispered to no one in particular. To save the world, create peace. But look at me, humiliated, weaponless, horseless. A frog in a well. He sobbed, vowing to die for his failures. From behind, Chang Dalai coughed loudly. Pick one, he quipped, making Lin spin around in rage. "Don't mock me, you bastard bandit," Lin snarled. "I'd rather die than be humiliated by the likes of you." Chung Dalai raised a hand to cut him off. "I heard what you said," he began, his tone calm but cutting. "You're a young fool who thinks dying for his dreams is brave. But a real man? He lives for his dreams, no matter how hard it gets." Lin faltered, surprised by the words from someone he viewed as a bandit. "Suicide isn't bravery," Chung Dalai pressed. "It's cowardice running from reality. How dare you call yourself a warrior?" Lin's shoulders slumped. "I don't know anymore." Chung Dalai softened. "You hate bandits. I get it, but I wasn't always this way. I had dreams, too. Dreams of literature, titles, and crossing seas. But the world's greed crushed those dreams." He extended a hand. "I want to rebuild this world, to save it. Will you help me?" Lin stared at him, stunned by the sincerity in Chung Dalai's voice. As his vision blurred, Lin thought he was dreaming. "How can a man with such a righteous dream be a bandit?" he murmured before collapsing into unconsciousness. Catching Lin before he hit the ground, Chung Dalai carried him back to the village. He ordered Zhu Shinji to fetch medicine, only to be told the supplies had been stolen long ago. "What if he's a spy?" Zhu questioned. "I trust him," Chung Dalai replied simply. To treat Lin's injuries, Chung Dalai used the system's blood oil. He summoned Ling Air to bring a shovel and hoe. Zhu Shinji was perplexed. "What are you planning, village master?" "Treasure hunting," Chung Dalai said. Reluctantly, Zhu Shinji joined the search, skeptical of finding anything valuable. But their efforts bore fruit. A blood pill to heal Lin, a hidden military drum among rocks, and an old, dusty flag under a table. Ling Air found a pristine metal spear along the road, while a long dry well began spewing fresh water, much to everyone's astonishment. Chung Dalai handed the spear to Kin Man, who was overwhelmed with gratitude. "I've dreamed of wielding a spear like this," Kin Man said, his voice reverent. A pop-up box declared Kin Man the top bandit of Toad Village, his Plum Blossom spear skill upgraded to a masterful level. The system goddess appeared with an extensive list of rewards: weapons, armor, farmland, a mountain spring, and more. But Chung Dalai's disappointment was palpable. "Still no sword for my dream of becoming a Myram swordsman?" He sighed. "Hopeless." Even as the rewards piled up, Chung Dalai's thoughts drifted back to Lin. Is he the ally I need to turn this village into something greater, or will he be the spark that burns it all down? Beneath a haystack that had gone unnoticed for years, Zhu Shinji uncovered a hidden entrance. As he pried it open, Chung Dalai followed him down creaky wooden stairs into a basement that seemed untouched by time. Before them lay a stack of 50 wooden boxes piled high, the air thick with the scent of dust and secrecy. "Think these are the old master's savings?" Zhu Shinji asked, his voice tinged with curiosity as he stepped closer to the stash. Chung Dalai shrugged. "Let's find out." He gestured for Zhu Shinji to open one of the boxes. Both men's eyes glinted mischievously, a crimson sheen of greed reflecting in the dim light. As Chung Dalai cracked open the first box, a burst of light erupted, flooding the basement. Memories of pulling rare items in gacha games danced in his head. Famous beasts, beautiful girls, legendary weapons. His excitement fizzled, however, as the contents revealed themselves. A box full of stones. The system goddess appeared with a cheerful thumbs up. "Better luck next time," Chung Dalai growled, holding up a rock. "Trash." Zhu Shinji offered to open the next box, but Chung Dalai waved him off. "Your luck's probably worse than mine." Ignoring the jab, Zhu Shinji cracked open another box, only to find a strange black substance. "Is this edible?" he asked. Chung Dalai examined it and sighed. "Gunpowder." By the time all 50 boxes were opened, the inventory looked grim. 10 boxes of gunpowder, 20 of useless stones, and piles of broken weapons and torn clothes. The system goddess gleefully displayed it all on a pop-up screen. Chung Dalai's mood shifted as an idea formed. The gunpowder and mountain roads might just give us a chance against Black Rock City. He instructed Zhu Shinji to keep the boxes intact, warning him about their potential importance. Zhu Shinji, however, eyed the wood hungrily. "Firewood for the winter. You break any of these, you're fired," Chung Dalai snapped. Shaking his head, Zhu Xinji led Chang Dalai to the back hill, where he explained the village's field had been left to rot for years. Despite his complaints about the late hour, Chang Dalai insisted on bringing Qin Man and Ling Er along to check it out. As they reached the field under a full moon, Zhu Xinji pointed out, "I threw some wheat seeds here last spring, but it's a wasteland. Nothing grows in a place like this." To their shock, the field was lush with golden wheat swaying gently in the breeze. Zhu Xinji's jaw dropped. "God bless us," he exclaimed, stepping into the field in awe. Ling Er, scolded for running through the sprouts, pouted but quickly brightened. "Let's harvest and make pancakes." "Don't waste it," Zhu Xinji scolded. "Elm leaves first, pancakes later." Qin Man calculated quickly. "If we harvest this 1,000-pound yield, we'll survive the winter. The straw can keep us warm, but we need to act fast before the rains come." As Zhu Xinji and Ling Er knelt to thank the heavens, Chang Dalai stood at a distance, reflecting. Not all bandits are evil. Some are just trying to survive this war-torn era. He thought of the young and old bandits alike, some tilling fields, others trading necessities in nearby towns. Even Zhu Xinji had once been a village scholar. Chang Dalai smirked as he recalled the man's story of luring a bully who harassed Ling Er, slaughtering the family's prized hen to play the gracious host, only to behead the drunk bully by the end of the night. The one time Zhu Xinji's schemes worked. Ling Er tugged at her father's sleeve, eager to harvest more wheat. Zhu Xinji shook his head, insisting they savor the moment under the moonlight. Back in Toad Village, Chang Dalai inspected a faded gray flag with red stripes. "This is ours?" he asked Zhu Xinji, noting its shabby state. Zhu Xinji grinned. "It's the heavenly toad swallowing the moon. Definitely not an egg." Chang Dalai smirked, handing the flag to Qin Man. "Hang it up." With a powerful leap, Qin Man scaled the roof and hoisted the flag. The symbol of Toad Village fluttered in the night breeze as Qin Man rejoined the group. The system goddess appeared with a sly grin. "With this flag, heroes who hear of your battles will flock to join you." She unveiled a new mission: increase the mountain's population to 100. Reward: 1 lottery draw. The scene shifted to the city lord's mansion. Commander Wang knelt before the city lord, sweat dripping as he recounted his failure. "The bandits at Toad Ridge call themselves Yuan from Yongchun," Wang sobbed. "There were hundreds of them. I tried to protect the young master's fiancée, but they overwhelmed us. I deserve death." The city lord sat in cold silence before nodding. "Kill him." Wang's wails echoed through the silent hall as his fate was sealed. Back in Toad Village, Chang Dalai stood beneath the moonlit flag, the wheat fields stretching out behind him. The battle for survival had only just begun. The city lord's tea was halfway to his lips when a voice from behind the crimson curtain interrupted. "Wait!" A young man stepped forward, his expression tense and determined. It was the city lord's son. "Father, allow me to lead the troops to Toad Ridge and rescue Miss Sue," he pleaded. The city lord rolled his eyes, dismissing the request with a wave. "She's just a woman. I'll find you another." But the young man knelt, bowing his head and pressing his hands together. "If I cannot protect my wife, I cannot call myself a man. Please, let me lead the troops." The city lord sighed and gestured for more tea as he asked how many soldiers his son wanted. When the young man confidently demanded 2,000 troops, the city lord nearly spat out his drink. The advisor sitting nearby objected. "Young master, 2,000 soldiers would require a massive amount of food, horses, and supplies. It's overkill. There are barely 300 bandits." The young man stood firm, insisting on overwhelming force. 200 cavalry, 200 archers, 300 swordsmen, 100 armored knights, and 200 spearmen. It's a perfect strategy. The cavalry will chase the runners, the archers will provide support, the armored knights will block charges, and the rest will finish them off. It'll be a cakewalk. The city lord studied his son for a moment before chuckling. "This is the dream of a boy who has always wanted to lead troops. Fine, you may have 1,000 men." As his son walked away, the city lord turned to Commander Wang. "You'll accompany him. Redeem yourself." Commander Wang bowed deeply, muttering inwardly that perhaps being executed would have been the easier option. Once they had left, the city lord consulted strategist Bai. "What do you think of my son's plan?" Bai frowned. "Cavalry and armored knights are useless in the mountains. The young master's plan is riddled with flaws. The city lord nodded. I know, but let the boy play general. There are number 300 bandits left on that ridge, and with 1,000 men, he can't possibly lose. He waved dismissively. Now let's enjoy ourselves. Strategist Bai, you've never known true joy until you've tasted these pleasures. Bai was speechless as the city lord disappeared with his entourage of young women. In Toad Village, Chung Dalai sat cross-legged on the floor, maps spread out before him. How does Black Rock City manage to feed 5,000 soldiers with only 20,000 citizens? He asked Miss Su, who sat across from him. They draw troops from military households, she explained. If the conflict is big enough, civilians are drafted. Bai Han Chuan, their strategist, once planned to train a standing army of 500, but it was scrapped due to resource constraints. Bai Han Chuan, Chung Dalai raised a brow. He oversees everything inside and outside the city. A brilliant man, Miss Su replied. Chung Dalai stood, gathering the maps. Sounds like Black Rock City has a terrible ruler. Miss Su scoffed. Could you do better? I don't know, Chung Dalai admitted. Miss Su sighed. You should run. There are only 4 of you, and they'll send at least 200 soldiers. Chung Dalai grinned. 5 now. Warrior Lin's with us. And we're not running. We're defending against 500 if we have to. Later, Chung Dalai found Warrior Lin near the cottages. How's the body holding up? Warrior Lin hesitated. You're asking, as my village master? Chung Dalai extended a hand. No, as someone who shares your ideals. Lin clasped his hand. For a moment, they stood in silence. For our ideals, they agreed. Under the shade of a tree, Chung Dalai addressed Zhu Shinji, who was munching on bread. I have an important task for you. Could determine our survival. Zhu Shinji waved him off. Find someone else. Chung Dalai insisted. This task can only be completed by my one and only strategist. When Chung Dalai revealed the plan to inform rival bandit groups about the impending attack, Zhu Shinji was indignant. You want me killed? You'll have Warrior Lin with you, Chung Dalai said, winking. And if you don't return, I'll take care of Ling Air. Also, I'll plaster your erotic drawings all over Black Rock City. Zhu Shinji paled, horrified. The next morning, Zhu Shinji sat atop a haystack in a wagon, seething silently as Warrior Lin steered the horses. Behind them were jars of wine to bribe the bandit leaders. As they disappeared down the mountain path, Kin Man turned to Chung Dalai. Do you think they'll trust him? Chung Dalai smirked. They don't have to. The chaos will work in our favor either way. Chung Dalai frowned, his brow furrowed in frustration as he scanned the box of gunpowder loaded with gravel and straw. It wasn't perfect, but it was what they had. Carefully, he added oiled cotton lines as a fuse, sealing the box with precision. Taking a deep breath, he turned to Kin Man, who stood ready with a red flag in his hands. This is the last test, Chung Dalai declared, waving the flag. Thanks for watching, guys. Comment Flamingo and subscribe for future parts. Kin Man, with a mighty heave, hurled the box down the slope. Seconds later, a fiery explosion erupted, shaking the ground and sending black smoke billowing into the sky. Kin Man watched in awe. The breath of an earth dragon, he exclaimed. No, Chung Dalai corrected with a grin. This is the art of explosion. Meanwhile, outside the gates of Black Rock City, rows of troops gathered under the blazing sun. The young master stood on an elevated stage, his hair and robe flowing dramatically in the breeze. Clear skies an excellent omen, he announced proudly. The soldiers, drenched in sweat, murmured their disagreement. Excellent omen, my foot, one whispered to Uncle Wong, an older soldier. Why are you here, anyway? You're turning 60 this year. Uncle Wong sighed, shushing him. Quiet down. It's just a few bandits, nothing to worry about. The young master, oblivious to the murmurs, picked up his sword and strode to a nearby soldier. Placing the blade against the man's neck, he asked, Are you happy? The soldier stammered in confusion. Happy. The young master smirked. Good. In ancient times, generals sacrificed a man before going to war. Congratulations, you've been chosen. Wait, you're joking, the soldier pleaded, panic in his voice. But the young master wasn't joking. In a swift motion, he slit the soldier's throat. As the man fell, Choking on his last breath, the young master declared, "Rest in peace. Your name will be glorified forever." The troops remained calm, though rage simmered beneath the surface. "Idiot!" someone muttered as they mounted their horses and prepared to march. As the troops made their way toward the mountains, the young master lounged in his luxurious carriage, shaded by an umbrella with a bowl of fruit at his side. Commander Wang rode alongside him, visibly sweating. "Why aren't you leading the charge?" Wang asked cautiously. The young master leaned back. "I'm not a grunt. I command troops, not wield swords. My brain is my greatest weapon." Wang wiped his brow, nodding nervously. "Of course, young master." The young master continued, "True generals stay in camp while their soldiers win battles for them. That's leadership." Wang stared, speechless, as dust kicked up from the marching troops. Back in the city, strategist Bai Han Chuan barged into the city lord's chambers, where the latter was preoccupied with his entourage of young women. "My lord," Bai began, "I'm uneasy about the young master. He's been gone for a day. Let me take 100 men to ensure his safety." The city lord waved him off. "Do as you please, but don't disturb me." Bai nodded and quickly organized a cavalry unit. 100 riders gathered and set off, the thunder of hooves echoing as they disappeared into the distance. By dusk, the young master's troops had reached the base of the mountains. Commander Wang advised a rest, but the young master scoffed. "Speed is essential. What if the bandits attack while we rest?" Wang argued. "The men are exhausted. Some can barely stand." "Then they're not fit for war," the young master retorted. "This fatigue is nothing compared to death. They must endure." At a crossroads, a soldier on horseback approached. "There are 3 paths ahead: the official road, the mountain road, and the valley road. Which do we take?" Commander Wang urged the official road, silently praying the young master wouldn't choose otherwise. The young master unfolded a war scroll, pondering aloud. "The bandits expect us to take the official road. They'll have set traps. We'll take the mountain road." Wang's face twitched with frustration as the column adjusted its course. In the bushes above, a bandit watched silently. Seeing the 1,000-strong force, he muttered to himself, "Toad Village was right." He sprinted to the Flying Tiger Village to report. Bursting into their leader's hall, he announced, "The rumors are true. 1,000 troops are coming, but they're not heading here, they're attacking Toad Village." The bandits murmured among themselves, puzzled. "Why send so many troops for 4 or 5 people?" one asked. Gao Feihe, the Flying Tiger leader, scratched his chin. "We'll wait and see. Without our strategist, it's better to observe for now." As the troops moved through a narrow valley, Chang Dalai and Zhu Xinji watched from above. Zhu Xinji counted the soldiers, his voice trembling. "At least 1,000. Village master, we have to retreat." Chang Dalai shook his head. "Retreat isn't an option. We'll fight as planned." Behind them, logs were tied to the cliff's edge, ready to drop. Chang Dalai outlined the plan. "When they're in the valley, we release the logs. Lin will fire the explosives. Zhu Xinji, Qin Man, and Ling Er toss the gunpowder boxes." Zhu Xinji, ever skeptical, asked, "Why only block one side of the valley? Why not trap them completely?" Chang Dalai explained, "Cornered people fight harder. Leave them a way out, and they'll lose their will to fight." As the soldiers marched below, Zhu Xinji gulped. "What if they don't take the bait?" "They will," Chang Dalai replied, his voice steady. "And if they don't, we adapt." The stage was set, and the battle for Toad Ridge was about to begin. Chang Dalai wiped the sweat from his brow. His nerves frayed as he barked orders. "Hold! Wait for the signal!" He glanced down at the chaos below, his hand trembling on the axe handle. The enemy cavalry had moved out of the kill zone, but the bulk of the troops were still in place. "Do it now!" he roared, swinging his axe to sever the rope holding back the logs. The cut was clean, and the massive logs tumbled down the mountainside with a thunderous roar. Screams erupted as soldiers and horses alike were crushed under the weight. Dust and splinters filled the air as the Black Rock City troops struggled to regroup. "Light it!" Chang Dalai ordered Warrior Lin, pointing to the pre-buried explosives. Warrior Lin froze, the torch quivering in his hand. His face was pale, sweat dripping down his temples. "There are too many of them," he stammered. Chung Dalai's patience snapped. He grabbed Warrior Lin by the collar and slammed him against a tree. "Bastard!" he snarled, his voice thick with fury. "This is war. It's not a playground. It's kill or be killed." Warrior Lin flinched as Chung Dalai shoved the torch into his hand. "If we let them go, we're dead. All of us." Chung Dalai lit the explosives himself, and the mountainside erupted in fiery chaos. Boulders rained from the cliffs, crushing soldiers and scattering the survivors. The enemy's screams echoed as panic spread through their ranks. "They're blocking the exit!" someone shouted, the terror palpable as another explosion ripped through the valley. Flames licked the sky, and soldiers scrambled to escape. Dust and smoke choked the air as bodies littered the ground. Amid the chaos, Kin Man rode his black horse into the fray, his spear a blur of motion. "You shall not pass," he bellowed, piercing the chest of an oncoming swordsman. Blood sprayed as the soldier tumbled from his horse, his final thought lamenting his exhaustion. Kin Man fought fiercely, holding the line as the remaining soldiers faltered. Behind him, Chung Dalai strategized. "Zhu Shinji, light the next set of explosives. Ling Air, Warrior Lin keep throwing." Kin Man's relentless attacks disoriented the enemy, but a few managed to break through. Flames erupted behind them, and terrified cries of "ghosts" filled the air. The young master, perched in his carriage, watched in disbelief as his troops fled in all directions. He stood, gesturing dramatically. "No one retreats. Cross that line, and you die." His commands fell on deaf ears. Soldiers trampled each other in their desperation to escape. The young master's carriage wobbled violently as the wheel broke, toppling it to the ground. Commander Wang galloped over, shouting, "We've lost. Flee while you can." The young master, ever delusional, handed Wang his sword. "Take this. Learn from this defeat, and one day you'll rise victorious." Wang's patience snapped. A rock struck his head, and he shoved the young master off his horse. "Die on your own, you idiot," he spat before fleeing. On the cliff, Chung Dalai knelt, his eyes scanning the battlefield below. He watched the fleeing soldiers with a critical eye. Once one runs, the rest follow. A domino effect. Zhu Shinji approached eagerly. "Village master, we've won." Chung Dalai rose, dusting himself off. "Let's finish this." They climbed onto a carriage, Zhu Shinji taking the reins while Chung Dalai and Warrior Lin stood ready with weapons. "Ling Air the drum," Chung Dalai commanded. Ling Air struck the drum with fervor as the carriage rolled onto the battlefield. Chung Dalai shouted, "Those who dismount will be spared. Leave your horses or face death." Kin Man continued his assault, spearing soldiers with ease as others fled in panic. Horses were abandoned in the chaos, and Chung Dalai's team collected them methodically. With the enemy routed, Chung Dalai turned to Zhu Shinji. "Take the horses back to the stables. Warrior Lin with me. We're going sword hunting." Not far from the battlefield, another group of bandits gathered in the shadows. They watched as the valley smoldered, flames licking the cliffs and black smoke curling into the twilight sky. "What a mess," one muttered, his hand resting on the hilt of his blade. The leader of the group stepped forward, his eyes gleaming. "Let's see what Toad Village is really made of." The embers of battle still burned, but the next storm was already brewing. As the tension simmered between the Toad Village and Flying Tiger bandits, Gao Fei, who, the Flying Tiger leader, stood confidently among his men. His sword gleamed in the sunlight as he exchanged words with Zhu Shinji, who was clearly out of his depth. "How could Toad Village hold off 1,000 soldiers?" one bandit whispered, his disbelief etched across his face. Gao Fei, who shrugged. "Who knows? Maybe they got help from an expert." Another bandit scolded the doubter. "Stop sighing. You're a mountain bandit, not some philosopher. Stick to the job." With a sharp order, Gao Fei, who rallied his men. "Enough chatter. Time to collect what's ours." The Flying Tiger bandits descended on the remnants of the Black Rock City soldiers, stripping them of weapons, armor, and dignity. One bandit demanded boots for himself, while another wrestled pants off a soldier who begged, "Please, I'm not into men." "Idiot!" the bandit snapped, yanking the pants free. "I just need your clothes." Meanwhile, Chung Dalai galloped after the fleeing young master of Black Rock City, axe in hand. "Stop running and give me your sword," he bellowed. The young master screamed as he spurred his horse faster, only to skid to a halt at the thunderous sound of hooves. A column of elite soldiers emerged, led by none other than Bai Han Chuan, Black Rock City's strategist. Chang Dalai froze, pulling his horse into the bushes. His sharp eyes studied the approaching troops, marveling at the strategist's commanding presence. "Reinforcements? So soon?" he muttered. The young master raced toward Bai Han Chuan, crying, "Save me! They bullied me!" Bai Han Chuan silenced him with a single, decisive strike, plunging his sword into the young master's throat. The young master fell to his knees, blood gurgling from his lips as he pleaded for his life. "Clean this up," Bai Han Chuan ordered coldly, motioning for his men to collect the corpse. From his hiding spot, Chang Dalai stared in awe as a pop-up box appeared in his vision. The system goddess provided details about Bai Han Chuan, a 52-year-old top strategist with the skill 7 sword slashes and no hidden attributes. Kin Man may be a powerhouse, Chang Dalai mused, but a top strategist? That's a different league entirely. Bai Han Chuan's sharp eyes scanned the bushes, sending Chang Dalai diving deeper into cover. With no further action, Bai ordered his men to retreat, leaving Chang Dalai both relieved and frustrated. "Why leave now?" Chang Dalai muttered, kicking a rock. "And why take the sword I wanted?" A pop-up box announced the successful completion of the 11th defense mission, rewarding him with a lottery draw. The system goddess emerged with a dramatic flair, lamenting her return from a torturous small black room. Chang Dalai barely hid his irritation. "You're back to hit me again, aren't you?" With a wooden gavel in hand, the system goddess smirked. "What do you think?" The news of Black Rock City's failed assault spread quickly across Kin New Mountain. Nearby bandit factions were abuzz, none more so than the Flying Tiger bandits, who had plundered the spoils of war. Linger, cheerfully riding a white horse under the clear morning sky, called out, "Father, isn't this like a dream?" Kin Man followed behind with a quiet grin. Zhu Xinji busied himself, gathering swords from the battlefield. Their peace was interrupted by Gao Fei Hu and his bandits. "Old man Zhu," Gao Fei Hu called mockingly. "Why not share the bounty?" Linger snapped. "We earned these horses with our own skill. Why should we share?" "Linger, quiet," Zhu Xinji hissed, but his daughter refused to back down. Gao Fei Hu's demeanor darkened. "We worked just as hard. If you won't split it willingly." One of his men charged forward, demanding the white horse. Before he could act, "A divine technique," he declared, raising his hand toward the clear sky. "I can summon thunder." The bandits glanced up nervously, the sun glaring back at them. Chang Dalai repeated the claim, pointing dramatically. "Thunder!" Nothing happened. The Flying Tiger bandits jeered. "Liar!" As they charged to strike him down, a deafening explosion shook the ground. Flames and debris erupted, scattering the bandits. Some were struck by flying rocks and tumbled from their horses, clutching their heads in terror. Chang Dalai sat perfectly still on his horse, hiding the wild thrum of relief coursing through him. He bellowed, "Who's next? Who wants a taste of my thunder?" The bandits gawked, stunned into submission. Even Gao Fei, who seemed rattled, wondering if the rumors of divine power were true. Chang Dalai seized the moment. "Move aside," he commanded, his voice unwavering, "or taste thunder again." Scrambling in fear, the bandits parted. As Chang Dalai rode past, he chanted the word thunder for effect. "Wait," Gao Fei Hu called, making Chang Dalai's stomach flip. "Did he see through me?" Chang Dalai turned, his composure intact. "What is it?" "You have too many horses," Gao Fei Hu said slyly. "Can you even feed them all?" Chang Dalai smirked, his sarcasm razor-sharp. "If we can't feed them, we'll eat them." With that, he trotted off, leaving Gao Fei Hu and his bandits to stew in silence. Back at Black Rock City, the night was heavy with tension. In his candlelit chamber, the city lord lounged among young women, fruit and liquor within reach. His indulgence was interrupted by strategist Bai Han Chuan, who entered with the corpse of the young master. "City lord," Bai called, his tone grave. The city lord sat up, his indulgence forgotten. His eyes widened as Bai laid the bloodied body before him. "My son!" he cried, trembling as he cradled the corpse. Strategist Bai knelt silently, his expression unreadable. Suddenly, he unsheathed his sword, its purple aura crackling ominously. The city lord barely had time to react as Bai struck, the electrified blade slashing across his chest. Blood splattered, and the city lord stumbled but quickly recovered. You killed my son." Bai's voice was calm, almost pitying. "I did." The city lord lunged with a torch, demanding answers. Bai parried with ease, his strikes precise. "This era is one of chaos," Bai explained coldly. "The empire weakens, and the world cries for heroes. But you've grown fat and useless, drunk on wine and lust. Someone must take the throne." The city lord's fury boiled over. "You dare lecture me? I made you. Without me, you'd still be a woodcutter groveling in the dirt." They clashed fiercely, the room filling with the clamor of steel and the terrified whimpers of the young women. Bai's attacks were relentless, but the city lord's strength was formidable. "You're nothing but a dog," the city lord spat. "A frog in a well, blind to the world's depths." Both men screamed in rage, their final strikes colliding with thunderous force. Suddenly, a delicate hand emerged from the crowd of young women, holding back the city lord. He froze, stunned by the unexpected intervention. A young lady jabbed a pin into the city lord's side, prompting a sharp yelp as he spun around to glare at her. Strategist Bai wasted no time. With a swift thrust of his sword, he plunged it into the city lord's chest. Blood spilled dramatically as the city lord let out one final scream before crumpling to the floor, leaving Strategist Bai standing over him, sword dripping red. Bai stared down, knowing full well he wasn't cut out to be a great city lord, but he was determined to try anyway. As the city lord lay dying, he muttered about something black. Bai leaned closer, mocking him with a sardonic grin. "What's that? Your final riddle?" The city lord, through a wet cough, murmured about Black Rock City, calling it the kingdom's gateway. His warning was dire. If the Ring tribe breached it, chaos would engulf the world. This unexpected declaration rendered Bai momentarily speechless. He straightened up, leaving the flickering candlelight by the curtain as a quiet farewell. That night, the city lord's mansion burned to the ground. The warm rays of morning sunlight blanketed Toad Village's wheat fields, but the tranquility was broken by Zhu Xinji's incessant nagging. "Stop lounging around, master. We need to finish harvesting before the horses starve." A basket of wheat sat nearby, already raided by opportunistic birds. Chung Dali groaned theatrically, flopping against a rock. "I can't. I'm exhausted," he whined. Warrior Lin, drenched in sweat, muttered under his breath, unable to believe a warrior like himself was stuck doing farm chores. Meanwhile, Chung Dali gripped his stomach like a melodramatic actor. "My tummy hurts, Zhu Xinji." No energy left, but Xinji was immune to his antics, scolding the village master about sun-dried wheat snapping like brittle twigs if they delayed any further. Suddenly, a red beetle skittered across the field, bringing an idea as bright as its shell to Chung Dali's mind. "Wait, I haven't robbed anyone in days," he announced, springing to his feet with renewed vigor. Zhu Xinji blinked in disbelief as Chung Dali dashed off, Warrior Lin hot on his heels, leaving Xinji behind to fume. Deep in the Kanui Mountain, a father and his sons were trekking with bundles of firewood when one son nervously asked if there were bandits nearby. The father snorted, "If you're scared of bandits, forget about getting a wife. Their mission? Sell firewood, buy a donkey, and secure a bride for the eldest." "You should be dreaming of a horse," the father added. But his son argued that horses and donkeys weren't the same. Their bickering ended abruptly when Chung Dali and Warrior Lin leapt out from the trees. The family dropped to their knees in sheer terror, begging for mercy. Chung Dali raised an eyebrow. "Why are you kneeling? Stand up." The father explained their situation, prompting Chung Dali to laugh. "Well, aren't you lucky? I sell horses." He smirked, asking if they felt fortunate. The father nervously revealed their pitiful funds: 2 copper coins and 4 vegetable breads. Warrior Lin sampled one of the breads and declared it surprisingly tasty. Chung Dali, ever the opportunist, grinned. "We've got to sell these horses, Lin, or we'll end up eating them ourselves." He declared the deal of a lifetime, a horse for their meager offerings. Lin looked doubtful, but Chung Dali waved him off. "We're doing charity work today." Still trembling, the family followed Chung Dali up the mountain, despite fearing they were being led to their doom. At the stable, Chung Dali leaned casually against the doorframe. "Pick a horse. Quick now." The father hesitated, unsure if this was real. When they finally asked for 2 horses, Chung Dali scoffed. 2? Why not 3 for the kids? But the father admitted they couldn't afford to feed so many. Settling on 2, Chung Dali made a final offer. If they harvested his wheat field by sunset, the horses would be theirs. Under the blazing sun, the family got to work, scythes in hand, while Zhu Xinji berated Chung Dali for his laziness. Chung Dali lounged under a tree, sipping water, while Lin relaxed on a nearby cart. Despite Xinji's grumbles, Chung Dali mused happily. This place is like one big family. Qin Man's a beast, Lin's reliable, Ling Er's a hardworking sweetheart, and even Xinji's a grumpy grandpa. All I need now is a wife. Satisfied, Chung Dali watched the family toil away in the fields, feeling like the king of a little paradise. The son, still skeptical, leaned toward his father. "Do you think they'll really give us the horses?" His father, sweating nervously but attempting confidence, replied, "I think they mean it, but if we don't finish before sunset, they might just kill us instead." The sky blazed fiery orange as the sun dipped lower. Exhausted and hopeful, the poor villager hesitantly asked Chung Dali if they needed help grinding the wheat too. Chung Dali waved it off. "No need for that. Go on, pick your 2 horses." The trio Chung Dali, Zhu Xinji, and warrior Lin stood back, watching the family lead the horses away. The son couldn't contain his excitement. "Dad, pinch me. Are we dreaming? They're letting us take 2 horses." The father, wide-eyed and bewildered, muttered, "Bandits are good people. Who knew?" As the family vanished into the sunset, their voices drifted back, marveling at the generosity of these divine bandits who not only harvested wheat, but apparently ate wild vegetable bread. They were practically gods. Under a velvet night sky, lit by the ethereal glow of the full moon, Chung Dali, Zhu Xinji, and Qin Man sat around a crackling bonfire. Warrior Lin approached, bringing along a new visitor, a disheveled soldier who bowed awkwardly. Lin announced, "Village Master, someone's here to join us." Chung Dali scrutinized the visitor. "Wait a minute, isn't this that escort guy?" The man introduced himself as Commander Wang, recounting his tragic tale. After narrowly escaping death, he returned to Black Rock City only to find the city lord dead and strategist Bai Han Chuan slaughtering anyone remotely loyal to him. Fearful for his life, Wang fled toward Fallen Leaf City, where fate and Warrior Lin's robbery plans led him to Toad Village. Chung Dali raised a brow. "You're telling me Bai killed Han Huji and made himself city lord?" Wang nodded solemnly, adding that Bai was also spreading wild rumors, claiming Chung Dali was a bloodthirsty monster who ate human flesh and commanded 1,000 bandits. Chung Dali's jaw dropped. 1,000 bandits? Toad Village barely has 5 people, and he says I eat human flesh? How shameless. Wang continued. "He even put a bounty on your head." "How much?" Chung Dali asked eagerly. 50, Wang replied. Chung Dali's disappointment was palpable. 50? That's it. Zhu Xinji laughed when he learned his own bounty was 35. Qin Man shrugged at his own price of 30, grumbling that it was a pity he hadn't killed Han Huji himself. Chung Dali's irritation grew. 50 copper coins? They're looking down on me. He turned to Zhu Xinji. "What's Gao Fei Hu worth?" 180, Xinji replied, stifling a laugh. Chung Dali's eyes narrowed. "I'll surpass that. Just you watch." Wang, desperate to join, pleaded his case. The system goddess popped up, describing him in her usual dramatic fashion. Wang Sanyuan, age 43, a slightly popular butler with no skills or hidden attributes, known as Butler Wang. Chung Dali smirked. "You sure Toad Village is good enough for you?" Wang nodded. "Yes, sir." "Why?" Chung Dali pressed. "Are you looking down on us? Even if we're small, each of us is worth 100 soldiers." Butler Wang, flustered, could only bow repeatedly. Zhu Xinji, ever the practical one, assured Wang that Chung Dali was strict but fair. Chung Dali, however, wasn't done. "If you're serious, Write me a 5,000-word application letter explaining why you're worthy. Wang paled. 5,000? Are you trying to kill me? Show your sincerity, Chang Dali said, smirking. Panicked, Wang handed over a treasure map. Will this do? Chang Dali took it, intrigued. A treasure map, huh? What's the story? Wang explained that the map detailed locations where the city lord had hidden valuables decades ago during a bandit attack. The treasures had never been recovered, and the map was a prized possession. Chang Dali examined the map, noting the vague drawings of mountains and rivers. This is interesting, but you still need to prove your worth. We've got a crisis, and if you help solve it, you're in. Wang sighed. What do you need? Chang Dali grinned. We've got too many horses. They're becoming a burden. Wang suggested selling them to merchants in Fallen Leaf City or other bandit clans. Chang Dali clapped him on the back. Now that's smart thinking. Keep it up and you might just earn your place here. Shut it, or I'll unleash my thunder, he snapped, silencing the crowd. Butler Wang quickly reassured them. No tricks here. You can see the horse's movements behind the curtain. Who knows, you might get an amazing horse for a steal. The first auction began with a single bag of grain. The bandits hesitated, whispering among themselves, until a commanding female voice cut through the murmurs. I'll bid. A group of armed women rode up, led by a striking bandit with long blue hair. She raised her knife, glaring at the gawking men. 1 bag of beans. The men muttered appreciatively about her beauty, only to freeze when she snarled, Stop staring, or I'll dig your eyeballs out and feed them to the dogs. Butler Wang declared the Apricot Blossom Bandits the winners. Warrior Lin brought out the horse-stunning white steed. Gasps rippled through the crowd as the Flying Tiger Bandits recognized it as the horse they'd once tried to steal. White Wolf, the Apricot Blossom leader, smirked. She fished out her flyer and waved it triumphantly. This is good for a discount, right? Chang Dali, ever the gentleman, assured her she'd get her beans back. As she mounted her prize, her hair flowing like silk, she called to her sisters, Let's go! Zhu Xinji, entranced, muttered to Chang Dali, She's even cuter on horseback. Chang Dali, blushing furiously, could only nod. The crowd of bandits grew rowdier, demanding the next auction start quickly. Chang Dali, his confidence soaring, turned to Zhu Xinji. Tell me more about her. Xinji obliged, recounting White Wolf's tragic backstory of martial arts, betrayal, and vengeance. Chang Dali sighed wistfully. Why didn't you tell me this earlier? We need to make friends with the Apricot Blossom Bandits. A series of rapid knocks echoed through the village gate. The bandits stiffened. Are we being attacked? Someone whispered nervously. Gao Fei, who raised a brow. Let's not jump to conclusions. Let's check it out, he said, leading his men to investigate. Outside the gate, the trees were plastered with dozens of posters. Meanwhile, one squinted at them. What's written on these things? He asked. The rest urged their leader, Gao Fei Hu, to read it out loud. The posters advertised horses for sale at Toad Village, boasting discounts below market value, with an additional 20% off if customers brought a flyer. Gao Fei Hu read the details with a calm demeanor, but his heart raced. This time, Lao Er eagerly stepped forward, volunteering to read the flyer aloud. As he began, the contents revealed yet another advertisement from Toad Village, this time recruiting people with promises of noodles and pancakes. The very thought made Lao Er's mouth water, while Gao Fei, whose face twisted in anger. The flyer spoke of riding majestic horses, enjoying delicious food, and mingling with beautiful girls. Lao Er's excitement was palpable as he dreamily imagined these luxuries. But Gao Fei, who slammed his hand down and cursed Chang Daolei, that shameless bastard, he's gone too far, recruiting from other villages now. Does he think he can humiliate us like this? Gao Fei, who fumed, demanding someone bring him his sword. Meanwhile, Lao Er tried to calm him down, gently suggesting they sit by the bonfire and have some wine to cool off instead. Gao Fei, who begrudgingly took the bottle, taking a long swig while Lao Er shared his own devious idea. Boss, if they're recruiting, why don't we send some of our men to join them? Let them eat their food, drink their wine, and wait for the perfect chance to strike. When the moment's right, we'll take over Toad Village. Lao Er's enthusiasm was infectious, but Gao Fei, who looked at him with mild disbelief. Wait a second, you know the word opportunity? he muttered, leaving Lao Er confused and slightly offended. Meanwhile, Zhu Xiaoshu, one of Flying Tiger's minions, narrated his own experience at Toad Village. Born to bandit parents, Zhu's life had been anything but glamorous. Despite the common belief that bandits lived on meat and wine, it had been over a year since he'd had a proper meal. Times were tough, with barren farms and failed harvests forcing many to forage for wild vegetables just to survive. Earlier that day, Zhu had accompanied Lao Er to Toad Village under the guise of joining their ranks. While Lao Er called it a scheme, he hadn't elaborated much, so Zhu simply followed orders. When they arrived, they found a long line of other bandits from nearby villages also attempting to join. Butler Wang stood at the gate, efficiently managing the crowd and insisting that everyone register first. Lao Er, true to his nature, attempted to cut the line and was promptly blocked. Zhu couldn't help but think his second master was a fool. Unable to read or write, Lao Er awkwardly fumbled with the registration process, trying to copy the actions of the bandits ahead of him. Eventually, he was handed a saw and tasked with cutting wood, while Zhu was assigned to move the timber. At midday, a pretty girl passed by, announcing, "If you work hard, you'll get dumplings for lunch." Dumplings, a luxury Zhu hadn't tasted since the previous New Year. The mere thought made his stomach growl. When lunchtime finally arrived, he was astounded to see steaming bowls of dumplings with shiny, translucent skins filled with meat and vegetables. He devoured 3 bowls, marveling at how he could eat until full, something he hadn't experienced in years. By nightfall, Toad Village even handed out 5 kilograms of food to each person. Returning to Flying Tiger Village with this bounty, Zhu eagerly shared his experience. While some bandits were skeptical, others couldn't hide their growing curiosity. Zhu silently resolved to return to Toad Village the next day, even if it meant sneaking out. 5 kilograms of food from a single day's work was too good to pass up. Back at Flying Tiger Village, Lao Er was busy bragging to Gao Fei Hu about the food at Toad Village. "Boss, their dumplings are amazing. They even use just the right amount of salt. Oh, and guess what? I stole some of their salt. They'll never notice." He laughed. But Gao Fei Hu wasn't amused. "Did you find anything about Chung Daol's so-called thunder spell?" Gao Fei Hu demanded. "Not yet," Lao Er admitted. "Chung Daol didn't show up today. But don't worry, boss. Tomorrow, I'll bring more men and find out all his secrets. Plus, I really want more of that food. Noodles, boss. Every meal has noodles. Get lost." Gao Fei Hu snapped, shooing him away in frustration. The next day, Toad Village saw an even larger influx of visitors, with nearly 1,000 people arriving. Butler Wang, ever the efficient manager, assigned tasks seamlessly. Some were put to work building walls with stones, others dug earth, and many smithied bricks. The once quiet village was now bustling with energy, alive with the sounds of progress. Chung Daol watched the scene unfold from a distance, a satisfied smile on his face. His plan to recruit manpower and secure food supplies was working better than he could have imagined. Toad Village, once a small and insignificant bandit hideout, was steadily transforming into something far greater. Miss Su sat quietly next to Chung Daol. Her curiosity piqued as she asked why he wasn't stepping outside. He smirked and replied that keeping himself mysterious was part of his strategy. Rumors had already begun swirling about his cultivation skills and his supposed mastery of thunder spells. If people saw him doing something as ordinary as using the toilet, their admiration would collapse like a house of cards. Miss Su, unimpressed, then asked why he was staying in her room specifically. Without hesitation, Chung Daol grinned and said, "Because you're pretty." Miss Su fell silent, though her eyes narrowed. Chung Daol, ever the tease, leaned in and added, "I think you're the most beautiful woman on the mountain." She rolled her eyes and muttered, "Liar." Meanwhile, outside, the bandits were hard at work, hauling logs and stones. Someone shouted, pointing to Kin Man, who was lifting an enormous 340-kilogram weight. Bandits gathered in awe, marveling at his strength. Kin Man, drenched in sweat, downplayed the attention, humbly claiming he wasn't all that impressive. However, they pressed him to prove his strength further. With a determined grin, Kin Man grabbed a massive stone mill weighing at least 450 kilograms. The bandits gasped and shouted warnings not to overdo it, but Kin Man hoisted it up with both hands, astonishing everyone. As he set it down, he remarked modestly, "I'm nothing special. Our village master is twice as strong as me." This piqued Chang Dail's interest as he observed the scene from Miss Su's window. Deciding it was time to make an appearance, he stepped outside. Miss Su peered out her window, watching as the bandits surrounded him, cheering and begging him to show off his strength. Kin Man approached and boldly challenged Chang Dail to a sparring match. Chang Dail dismissed the idea, telling Kin Man to get back to work, but Kin Man, clearly unsatisfied, charged at him. Chang Dail didn't flinch. Kin Man's fist shot toward him, but Chang Dail blocked it effortlessly with one hand. Kin Man's arm trembled under the pressure, his strength faltering. Chang Dail sighed, released his grip, and sent Kin Man flying backward into the woods. Calmly, Chang Dail walked over to where Kin Man lay sprawled on the ground. "You all right?" he asked. Kin Man grinned through his embarrassment, thanking Chang Dail for going easy on him. Chang Dail warned him to rein in his impulses next time, mentioning he had only used 60% of his strength. The bandits stood frozen in awe, whispering about how terrifying Chang Dail must be at full power. Butler Wang took charge, barking orders to get back to work. He directed the stronger men to smash a colossal boulder that weighed over 1,000 kilograms. The bandits grumbled, speculating who could take on such a task. Someone suggested that Chang Dail should do it, given his monstrous strength. Butler Wang hesitated but turned to his village master, asking if he could assist. Chang Dail, visibly annoyed, told them to handle such trivial matters themselves. He motioned for everyone to step back and raised his hands dramatically. Lightning cracked through the air, and an explosive burst shattered the boulder into debris. The ground shook as fragments flew in all directions, leaving the bandits stunned. Chang Dail coolly dusted off his hands and said, "Don't bother me with such small matters again." He turned and walked away, leaving the bandits scrambling to clear the rubble while praising his godlike power. Butler Wang called out, wishing Chang Dail a good day. Back inside, Miss Su asked him what had happened outside. Chang Dail flopped onto a chair, groaning about his aching back. 10 days later, the entire Toad village had been transformed. The construction project was complete, and the village now had a polished, strategic layout. The outermost layer was the defensive zone, with stone walls, mountain barriers, and watchtowers to spot approaching enemies. The preparation zone lay behind it, featuring a horse stable, blacksmith smithy, hospital, and even a public toilet for producing fertilizer. The residential area came next, with well-organized houses, a water well, granaries, and a weapons depot. The once chaotic terrain had been cleared of trees and fortified with traps designed by Kin Man, including horse pits, lassos, and wild boar snares. Butler Wang reported to Chang Dail that they had distributed most of their food during the construction period and now had only 100 kilograms left. However, he reassured Chang Dail that it was sufficient given their current population. Chang Dail nodded and instructed him to manage food expenses carefully and prepare to stockpile supplies. He also planned to ramp up recruitment efforts. Butler Wang smiled and affirmed the orders, confident that under Chang Dail's leadership, the village was growing stronger by the day. Chang Dail was informed with a laugh that the village's construction was finally complete, and as a reward, the system had granted him 1 acre of chili plants and the evolution of systematic animals. Disappointed, Chang Dail grumbled that 1 acre of chili was hardly enough to make a fortune. Suddenly, the system goddess appeared, taller and more imposing than before. "You look different," Chang Dail commented, raising an eyebrow. The goddess chuckled and explained, "Each time there's a major upgrade to the village, I get an upgrade too." She raised her hand dramatically and declared, "March forward boldly and become the Bandit King." A pop-up box appeared before Chang Dail, displaying a list of missions. The first mission was to change Miss Su's impression of him through nonviolent means for an unknown prize. The second was to recruit 100 people into Toad Village, also for an unknown reward. The third mission was to complete 10 robberies, again with an unspecified prize. Meanwhile, back at Flying Tiger Village, Gao Fei, who sat at a wooden table, sipping from a cup while listening to the second master's animated report. "If you'd been there, you'd have been shocked. Chang Dail used some kind of thunder technique," the second master exclaimed, gesturing wildly. He roared, and bam! The boulder exploded into pieces. We were all scared out of our minds. Gao Fei, who turned to his advisor, UQ, ran, for his thoughts. The military advisor stood calmly and said, I picked up a piece of the rock from that canyon. The marks were caused by dynamite, not some thunder technique. Dynamite? Gao Feihu repeated, confused. Yes, Yu Ran replied. It's similar to firecrackers but far more powerful. Do you think no one's coming to redeem you? Maybe no one wants you. Su Ying's eyes widened in irritation and disbelief. What are you trying to say? She retorted. Chung Daol softened his tone, smiling warmly. Even if the whole world betrays you, I won't. I'd betray the whole world just to be with you. His grin widened mischievously, but Su Ying only gave him a long, unimpressed look. Their exchange was interrupted by Xiao Yu's arrival. Village master, I finished hunting, he announced. Did you catch anything good? Chung Daol asked. Just a rabbit and a girl, Xiao Yu replied, adding with a smirk. She says she's a maid from the Su family. This piqued Chung Daol's interest. A girl? This young? He asked incredulously as a small figure emerged from behind Xiao Yu. The girl, Zhao Yi, darted towards Su Ying. Miss Su, you're alive. I thought they'd eaten you, she exclaimed with visible relief. Su Ying reassured her. I'm fine, Zhao Yi. You did well to find me. Still, Zhao Yi turned a suspicious eye to Chung Daol. Did he humiliate you, Miss Su? No, I'm unharmed, Su Ying replied firmly, though Chung Daol couldn't help but notice the slight edge in her voice. Sensing a deeper story, Chung Daol summoned San Yuan and Xiao Yu to understand the situation better. Xiao Yu recounted how he encountered Zhao Yi while out hunting. At first, he planned to send her back to Fallen Leaf City, but when she learned he was from Toad Village, she stubbornly insisted on coming along, showing no fear of King Nyo Mountain or its dangers. Chung Daol and San Yuan exchanged skeptical glances. Why didn't she scream for help if she ran into bandits? Chung Daol wondered aloud. San Yuan chuckled. Maybe it's because Xiao Yu is handsome. Chung Daol raised an eyebrow but let the joke slide, turning the conversation to practical matters. How much ransom should we demand from the Su family? San Yuan hesitated before explaining the complications. The Su family is in chaos. Su Si Hai, the head of the 4 sea merchants, has no sons, only daughters. Su Ying, being the most capable, is the logical heir, but her stepmother wants her own daughter to inherit the business and despises Su Ying. It's likely they'd rather see her gone than pay to get her back. Hearing this, Su Ying abruptly stood. I'll leave and figure out a way to gather the ransom myself, she declared. Chung Daol frowned. Why would you risk going alone? Su Ying said nothing, her silence a stark contrast to the fire in her eyes. Chung Daol realized that her determination was tied to something San Yuan had said. People with even a little fortune wouldn't willingly become bandits. The next day, Chung Daol sat down and wrote a ransom letter, speaking aloud as he scribbled. For the safe return of Su Ying, we demand 500 grains, clothes, rice paper, salt, wine, and books. Su Ying read the letter over his shoulder and sighed. You're not asking for much, she said sarcastically. Then, with unexpected sincerity, she added, once I've settled things at home, I'll send you double. Later, Chung Daol informed her that Xiao Yu and San Yuan would accompany her safely to Fallen Leaf City, about 70 to 80 miles away. He handed her some chili, suggesting she could use it to make a profit since her family owned a restaurant. Su Ying accepted the gift, but Chung Daol couldn't shake the feeling that his efforts to win her over had fallen flat. Before she left, Chung Daol crossed paths with Su Ying again and recited a poetic line. Flowers bloom on the street, but return slowly. Su Ying stopped him. Chung Daol, I want to talk to you, she said. What is it? He asked cautiously. She looked at him thoughtfully. You've said many nice things and done many things to make me happy. It almost made me think I could fall for you. But it all feels fake. Chung Daol looked guilty but said nothing. You can't expect genuine love when your feelings are insincere, she continued. And whether or not I'm sincere doesn't matter either. Chung Daol swallowed hard. What do you want from me then? Before we part ways, I want you to tell me one genuine feeling, she replied. Chung Daol hesitated, considering what to say. Finally, he leaned close and whispered in her ear. When I first saw you, I got hard. Su Ying blinked, confused. Hard? What do you mean? Realizing his blunder, Chung Dale froze, blushing furiously. "Never mind," he stammered, trying to backtrack. Suing, unimpressed, said, "If you're not going to explain, I'll just ask someone else." "No," Chung Dale panicked. "I'll explain. Next time we meet." As Suing walked away, Chung Dale sighed, wondering why he kept fumbling around her. He thought about how young and innocent she seemed, likely believing that something as simple as a kiss could lead to pregnancy. He realized how foolish his antics must appear and questioned if he was truly being honest with himself, or if Su Ying's heart was simply impenetrable. Amid his musings, Chung Dale heard the system's familiar chime. The second stage of robbing a wife had been completed, rewarding him with a heavy crossbow. However, the system also noted that the conditions for Phase 3 remained unmet, leaving him momentarily deflated. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Zhao Yi, sitting beside Su Ying in the carriage, voiced her disbelief. "I didn't expect Chung Dale to actually let us go," she said. But sensing Su Ying's pensive mood, she asked if something was on her mind. Su Ying hesitated before replying, "Zhao Yi, what does it mean when a man says he's hard?" Zhao Yi blinked, skeptical and confused. "Hard? What kind of hard?" she asked, but Su Ying offered no further explanation. By the time they arrived in Fallen Leaf City under the cover of night, Su Ying seemed lost in thought, wondering aloud if Chung Dale's heart was truly hardened. Back in Toad Village, Chung Dale finally took a moment to examine his reward, the heavy crossbow. Pleased, he decided to position it on the watchtower for defense. When Kin Man asked about its origin, Chung Dale simply shrugged and told him to focus on placement. With that task complete, he turned his attention to cultivating the chili plants, recalling his limited experience in farming. He planned everything meticulously, drying the chilies, extracting the seeds, fertilizing the soil, and planting them with care. In the middle of his preparations, Shinji interrupted with a bright idea. "Let's go down the mountain and rob someone." Chung Dale dismissed him with a wave. "You're just trying to avoid helping me with the chili." Meanwhile, White Wolf appeared below King Nyo Mountain, spotting Chung Dale. "What are you doing out here in this heat? Robbing people?" she asked, her tone laced with curiosity. "Of course," Chung Dale replied, flashing a confident grin. "I'm a professional bandit. But what about you? Don't tell me you came all this way just to find me." White Wolf smirked. "I've got a promising lead. Thought you might be interested." They returned to Toad Village to discuss the matter. White Wolf noticed the chili plants and mistook them for fruit. Chung Dale explained they were chilies and even offered her some seeds to cultivate, but she waved him off, uninterested. After serving her a cup of water, Chung Dale pressed, "So, what's this opportunity you're talking about?" White Wolf revealed the plan. A shipment of birthday gifts destined for Zhu Banquan would soon pass through King Nyo Mountain. She proposed they join forces to rob it, explaining that the gifts were a bribe meant to win favor with the city lord of Yuzhou, a critical step in Zhu Banquan consolidating power. The haul would be enormous, she promised. Chung Dale hesitated. "I don't kill innocents. My godly thunder spell forbids it. The heavens would punish me." White Wolf's face fell. "I should have known you'd hesitate," she said, withdrawing her offer. Before she left, Chung Dale handed her some chili seeds, suggesting she grow them and exchange the harvest for food. She declined, insisting he keep them for himself. Later that night, a bandit from the Zhu family approached Toad Village, requesting to borrow seeds for farming. He promised to return twice the amount borrowed. Chung Dale, recognizing their dire situation, suggested they grow chili instead, explaining its value as a trade item. After directing the bandit to San Yuan for the seeds, Chung Dale reflected on how even mountain bandits, who paid no taxes, were struggling with food shortages. A few days later, Xiao Yu and San Yuan returned from Fallen Leaf City, bringing pigs, chickens, cloth, salt, paper, grain, and a pen. Meanwhile, bandits from other areas began mobilizing, preparing to ambush the gift convoy 50 kilometers from King Nyo Mountain. The news of the shipment spread like wildfire, sparking widespread anticipation. Chung Dale, however, focused on simpler tasks: raising chickens, growing vegetables, and the occasional low-stakes robbery. He, Xiao Yu, and Kin Man rotated shifts, ensuring Toad Village's safety. When they encountered poor merchants, they often took insignificant items like buttons and even helped guide them out of King Nyo Mountain. Xiao Yu remarked, "At this point, we're barely robbers." Chung Daol sighed. "I can't bring myself to rob the poor. Someday we'll find a fat sheep worth taking." Elsewhere on King Nyo Mountain, a man and a woman wandered the trails. "Slow down," the woman urged. "We should head back to Yujo City. This place feels dangerous." The man waved her off. "Traveling gives you real-life experiences that books can't," he said, admiring the scenery. "Besides, if I stayed in Yujo, I'd miss sights like this." "What sights? This place is miserable," she countered. "And what about mountain bandits?" He laughed. "Let them try. I'll cut them down." At that moment, Chung Daol burst from the bushes, blocking their path. "Bandits!" the man shouted, stepping in front of the woman. Chung Daol sized them up, noting the man's bravado and the woman's startled expression. The man puffed out his chest. "Don't worry, I'll protect you," he told the woman, though he eyed Chung Daol's massive axe nervously. After a long pause, he sighed. "We surrender." The woman gaped at him. "What? You're surrendering?" Chung Daol, equally bewildered, watched as the man introduced the woman as his sister. "Take her," he offered, "and let me go." The woman, clearly flustered, exclaims, "How could my brother sell me?" The man, trying to justify himself, reassures her, "Wan Er, I have a bright future ahead. Your sacrifice will not be forgotten. I'll always remember you." Wan Er glares at him, visibly upset. "You bastard! I can't believe you'd even consider selling me," she scolds, her disbelief written all over her face. Chung Dao Li interrupts their escalating argument with a loud cough. "All right, enough sibling drama. What are your names?" The woman straightens herself, replying curtly, "I am Lai Wan Er, and this is my brother, Lai Xingzhai." Chung Dao Li raises a brow. "What do you do for a living?" Xingzhai hesitates before answering, I'm a scholar." Chung Dao Li sighs inwardly, disappointed. "A scholar? They're usually dirt poor." He moves on. "And what's a scholar like you doing here?" Xingzhai responds with enthusiasm. "I dream of traveling the world and writing poetry. Exploring different places broadens the mind." Chung Dao Li smirks sarcastically. "Well, congratulations. You've explored your way right into being kidnapped. Great job." Xingzhai and Wan Er maintain poker faces, unsure how to respond to the insult. Later, as they reach Toad Village, Wan Er's eyes widen in recognition. "This is Toad Village, isn't it?" she asks Chung Dao Li. Curious, Chung Dao Li tilts his head. "What makes you think so?" Xingzhai jumps in, his tone excited. "The rumors. They say this is the place where 5 men fought off an army of 1,000 from Black Rock City, scaring the soldiers so badly they abandoned their armor and weapons." Chung Dao Li pauses, momentarily stunned. "Have I become famous already?" Wan Er interrupts his thoughts, her expression wary. "I've also heard other rumors about how you eat humans and drink their blood. Did you kidnap us to be your next meal?" Chung Dao Li rolls his eyes. "Do I look like a cannibal to you?" Wan Er hesitates before reluctantly agreeing. "No, you don't." Chung Dao Li seizes the moment to lay down the rules. "As long as you stay peaceful, I won't harm you. But remember, this mountain is crawling with bandits. If you think you can leave safely on your own, you're welcome to try." Wan Er's face turns red, and she begins to say something but stops herself. Instead, she asks, "Why are you keeping us here?" Chung Dao Li crosses his arms, his tone serious. "Because you're scholars. You're going to write down everything you know. Once that's done, I'll make sure you're escorted out of King Nyo Mountain safely." He calls for Shinji and instructs him to prepare ink and arrange a separate room for their guests. In their room, Wan Er confronts Xingzhai. "Why did you surrender so quickly? Even our swordsmanship teacher praised your skills." Xingzhai deflects with a grin. "Why don't you tell me why this bandit village interests you so much?" Wan Er frowns. "Interesting? This place is nothing but trouble." Xingzhai chuckles, his eyes gleaming with curiosity. "Think about it. A bandit village that kidnaps people for knowledge? Fascinating, isn't it? Now, fetch the ink. I feel a poem coming on." Elsewhere in Toad Village, Chung Dao Li inquires about recent news. San Yuan informs him, The escort team will pass through King Nyo Mountain in 10 days. They're sending someone named Lu Heng to guard the gifts. Chung Dao Li raises a brow. Lu Heng? Who's that? San Yuan explains. He's around 30, an orphan with no family. Uses a big stick as his weapon. Loyal and strong. The perfect escort. Chung Dao Li nods thoughtfully. If he's so strong, why would the other bandits even bother trying to rob him? San Yuan shrugs. They won't fight him directly. Ambushes, poison, traps, those are their likely tactics. Should we interfere? Chung Dao Li considers it for a moment. We don't have enough manpower to take on something like that. Let's see how this plays out. The scene shifts to Wan Er's room, where Xing Zhai bangs on the door excitedly. Wan Er, wake up. I have to show you something. Wan Er, annoyed, groans. Did you steal the servant girl's clothes again? Xing Zhai looks flustered. No, and stop bringing up the past. Now, come on. As Xing Zhai drags her around the village, Wan Er grows curious. What is it this time? Some outdoor bath? No, Xing Zhai replies, gesturing to a pool of water. It's this. He explains how the spring water flows from the mountain into a basin covered with straw, gravel, and charcoal to filter out impurities. Wan Er squints. Charcoal? What's that for? To purify the water. Xing Zhai replies confidently, though his knowledge is shaky. Wan Er raises a brow. Bugs in the water? Xing Zhai waves her off. It's complicated, but it works. Trust me. Later, Xing Zhai leads Wan Er to a hut. She recoils. I'm not going in there, it stinks. Xing Zhai rolls his eyes. Fine. If you won't go in, I'll just explain. He describes how the hut connects to a larger pit that uses beetles to process waste and turn it into fertile soil. Wan Er grimaces. Why would anyone even think of that? Xing Zhai shrugs. You learn the most fascinating things when you travel. He gestures around. Doesn't this village seem simple yet ingenious to you? Wan Er scoffs. There are only 6 people here. How impressive could it be? Xing Zhai smiles knowingly. You'd be surprised. The owner of the stronghold has big plans. That evening, Chung Dao Li visits Xing Zhai. How's the writing going? Xing Zhai grins. I've been documenting everything I see and hear. Why do you ask? Chung Dao Li shrugs. Because someday I want to write a masterpiece. Something that will be remembered for generations. Chung Dao Li remarks. If I don't look like a writer, what do I look like? Xing Zhai and Wan Er exchange neutral glances, neither agreeing nor disagreeing. Changing the subject, Chung Dao Li asks, All right then, let's see these poems you're so proud of. Xing Zhai, you mentioned they even impressed some of the so-called masters, didn't you? Xing Zhai beams with pride, handing over the papers. Of course, these poems are quite renowned in Jingzhou. Even the established masters can't help but praise them. Chung Dao Li snatches the papers, eager to see for himself. As he reads through them, his face twists into a mix of amusement and disdain. He sets the pages down and sighs theatrically. These barely qualify as poetry. If this is the best the Empire has to offer, I'm deeply concerned about its poetic future. Wan Er, offended on her brother's behalf, jumps in. For your information, his poems are famous. People in Jingzhou speak highly of them. Chung Dao Li smirks and waves her off. They just haven't seen real poetry yet. He picks up a brush and starts writing, muttering as he goes. If my work spreads across the empire, I fear all the so-called poets will be too scared to pick up a pen ever again. Xing Zhai, unimpressed, responds sarcastically. Your confidence is inspiring, village master. Truly. Wan Er, on the other hand, frowns, thinking Chung Dao Li is far too boastful. When Chung Dao Li finishes, he doesn't hand over the paper but instead declares, It's getting late. You should rest. As he walks toward the door, Xing Zhai stops him. Wait, why did you write only 1 sentence? That's hardly a poem. Chung Dao Li pauses, then shrugs nonchalantly. 1 sentence is all I need. Any more, and it might scare the entire Empire scholars into early retirement. Xing Zhai chuckles. Well, I don't know about the rest of the Empire, but that sentence alone has me doubting my future as a poet. The next morning, Shinji bursts in, informing Chung Dao Li of grim news. Zhu's village. It's been destroyed. Chung Dao Lei immediately demands to see the place. Arriving at Zhu village, Chung Dao Lei is horrified by the sight of destruction. Flames consume what remains of the village, and lifeless bodies, women, children, and the elderly are strewn across the ground. The air is heavy with smoke and death. This is a massacre. Chung Dao Lei mutters, his voice trembling with indignation. Who would do something so ruthless? These were harmless villagers. The bandits, equally shocked, murmur among themselves, questioning who could be responsible. One of them notes that they had always maintained peaceful relations with the villagers of King Myo Mountain. Another speculates that the attackers must be outsiders. White Wolf steps forward, her sharp eyes catching a blood-stained message pinned to a sword embedded in the ground. She pulls it free and reads the letter aloud. The note demands that the people of King Myo Mountain surrender within 3 days and gather at the foot of the mountain. Failure to comply will result in the complete slaughter of everyone on the mountain. The message is signed by Lu Hung of Blackstone City. Chung Dao Lei clenches his fists as he processes the message. In his thoughts, he concludes that this atrocity was meant to serve as a warning, a brutal display to instill fear. To the outside world, mountain bandits are worth less than dogs. He reflects bitterly. At Flying Tiger Village, Lao Er informs Gao Fei that he has stationed 2 additional posts at the back of the mountain. We'll rotate the men tonight, Lao Er adds. Gao nods. Good. Remind everyone to keep their weapons close and to stay sharp. Turning to their strategist, Gao asks, are there any gaps in our defenses? The strategist reassures him. If we can survive the next 3 days, everything will settle down. There are no oversights in our current arrangement. Gao sighs deeply, his mind racing. His original plan had been simple: rob the birthday gifts and provide enough for his men to survive the winter. But Lu Heng's unexpected cruelty had thrown everything into chaos. Any news on Chung Dao Lei? Gao asks. Lao Er scoffs. Don't mention that coward. I heard he was so scared he wet himself and fell ill after seeing Zhu village. Gao doesn't laugh at the insult. Instead, he muses. He's young. He hasn't seen this kind of tragedy before. He glances at the horizon, unease settling in his chest. If Lu Heng is this cruel, how can we possibly survive this? Back at Toad Village, Wan Er brings up Lu Heng in conversation. He even killed children. It's terrifying how skilled and ruthless he is. Xing Zhai frowns. Killing isn't something to take lightly, no matter how skilled you are. Wan Er glances at him. We should leave this place, Xing Zhai. It's not safe anymore. Xing Zhai agrees. We'll slip out quietly. No need to involve anyone. Before they can finalize their plan, Chung Dao Lei casually pushes open the door. Still chatting this late at night? He asks with a grin. Wan Er stiffens. Why are you here? Shouldn't you be in bed? Considering you're supposed to be sick. Chung Dao Lei waves off her concern. It's just a minor ailment. Nothing to worry about. I actually wanted to have a word with you too. Xing Zhai raises a brow. What's the topic tonight? Chung Dao Lei leans back against the doorframe. The history of the empire. I've been curious about this world's timeline. Xing Zhai launches into a detailed explanation. As he recounts the rise and fall of empires, Chung Dao Lei pieces together how this world differs from his own. While it shares some similarities like the myth of Pangu creating the heavens and Nuwa shaping humans, there are significant deviations. When Xing Zhai mentions that Cao Cao was executed after stabbing Dongjua, Chung Dao Lei is taken aback. Wait, so there were no 3 kingdoms? Xing Zhai shakes his head. No. After the chaos of the Eastern Han, the world split into 19 warring states instead. Chung Dao Lei listens intently as Xing Zhai continues, recounting how the Dao Wu Empire eventually unified the land. He learns that the empire faced constant invasions from the Rong tribe and spent a fortune maintaining border defenses. Wan Er sighs, and despite all that spending, they've still suffered countless defeats. Chung Dao Lei leans back, lost in thought. This world, similar yet so different. Wan Er furrows her brow and presses Xing Zhai. Why hasn't the empire won against the Ring tribe after all these years of conflict? Xing Zhai, visibly frustrated, shakes his head. The problem lies with the generals at the border. They're nothing but a bunch of drunkards who barely scrape by and have no real grasp of military affairs. Chung Dao Lei raises an eyebrow, intrigued. Why does that make you so angry, Xing Zhai? Xing Zhai sighs heavily and gestures as if brushing aside invisible cobwebs. It's infuriating. Skirmishes have been happening year after year, and each time, the Empire's army suffers defeat after defeat. False reports of military achievements flood in, but the truth is, hundreds of our soldiers die just to take down a handful of the Ring Tribe's men. The frontier army is an absolute mess. Turning to Cheng Dao Lei, Xing Zhai asks, "What do you think? How can the Empire win against the Ring Tribe?" Cheng Dao Lei shrugs, playing it cool. "I'm just a mountain thief. What do I know about winning wars?" Wan Er shoots him a quizzical look, clearly unimpressed. Xing Zhai continues, leaning forward as though revealing a grand secret. "I once met an old man who said armies can be divided into 3 classes. The lowest class fights for survival. These soldiers prioritize their own lives, fleeing the moment they face a stronger opponent. The second class fights for specific interest rewards, land, titles. They fight fiercely when they win but panic and scatter when they lose. The first class fights for honor, willing to die on the battlefield with pride. These are the elite, the backbone of any army." Cheng Dao Lei smirks faintly. "And where did this old man get such wisdom?" Xing Zhai straightens up, his voice tinged with pride. "That old man? He's none other than the current marshal of the Empire." Cheng Dao Lei pauses for a moment, rubbing his chin. "Interesting, but let me tell you something. An army fighting for honor isn't necessarily the strongest. An army driven by faith, by a shared belief, is even stronger. When thousands of people fight with unwavering conviction, unafraid of death, they're nearly unstoppable." Xing Zhai narrows his eyes. "Does such an army even exist?" Cheng Dao Lei nods solemnly. "Oh, they exist. But even that kind of army isn't the strongest." Wan Er, skeptical, interjects. "Then what is the strongest army, if not one driven by faith or honor?" Cheng Dao Lei leans back, exuding calm confidence. "An army that fights for survival is the strongest. Because running away doesn't guarantee survival, but fighting and winning does. It's all about necessity." Wan Er frowns. "But if everyone's just fighting to save themselves, wouldn't the whole army dissolve into deserters?" Cheng Dao Lei gestures dismissively. "Not necessarily. Look at the Ring Tribe. Why do they win while the Empire keeps losing? It's because they fight for survival. Their grasslands are turning into deserts. Their livestock is dying. They face starvation every day. Fighting the Empire gives them a chance, however slim, for a better life. For them, it's fight or die." Xing Zhai strokes his chin thoughtfully. "I've heard that during the severe drought 30 years ago, the Ring Tribe's invasions were at their worst. The harsher their conditions, the more desperate and ferocious their attacks became." Cheng Dao Lei nods. "Exactly. For the Ring Tribe, not fighting means certain death. But for the Empire, if things go south, they can retreat to the hinterlands. Their generals bicker in courts, their soldiers lack discipline, and their people have other options for survival. It's no wonder they lose." Xing Zhai listens intently, then suddenly grins. "Cheng Dao Lei, you should come back to Jingzhou with me. You don't belong here on King Nyo Mountain." Caught off guard, Cheng Dao Lei blinks. "Why would I do that?" Xing Zhai beams. "Because you're sharp. You have a keen mind for strategy and an unorthodox way of looking at things. You deserve a better future. Come with me to Jingzhou, and I promise you'll achieve great things." Cheng Dao Lei chuckles to himself, thinking, he really believes I'm some kind of genius strategist. How easily fooled. Still, he sees the sincerity in Xing Zhai's eyes and awkwardly waves him off. "You're flattering me, really? I'm just a simple man with simple goals. Besides, the Empire's bureaucracy isn't my style." Xing Zhai insists, "You're too modest. With your talent, you could easily secure a high-ranking position." Cheng Dao Lei shakes his head firmly. "Thanks, but no thanks. I'm not interested in politics." As he starts to leave, his eyes land on Xing Zhai's sword. "By the way," Cheng Dao Lei says casually, "that's a nice sword you've got there. Mind if I borrow it?" Xing Zhai chuckles, gazing at Cheng Dao Lei with a knowing smile. "We'll see." Later that evening, Linger approaches Cheng Dao Lei, asking for his help grinding chili. Cheng Dao Lei agrees with a smile, promising to join her shortly. Meanwhile, in his room, Xing Zhai sits alone, staring at his sword. He murmurs to himself, "So, he wants my sword. Does he? With a mischievous grin, he opens a small compartment hidden within the sword's hilt. 3 days later, on King Nyo Mountain, General Lu Heng receives a report from his scouts. General, we've scouted the entire area. No signs of ambushes or traps. One soldier reports. Lu Heng stands tall, scanning the horizon with a steely gaze. Good, he replies. Prepare the men. We march at dawn. Thanks for watching, guys. Comment Flamingo and subscribe for future parts. White Wolf watched the chaos unfold with a curious expression and asked, "What is that?" Gao Fei, who, exasperated, replied, "A red chili bomb." His tone implied that even he was unsure how to process the absurdity of it. Despite the pandemonium, General Lu Heng's soldiers continued their charge toward Toad Village. Chang Dao grinned, calling Xiao Yu to join him in battle while Qin Man engaged General Lu Heng directly. Qin Man swung his spear with force, but Lu Heng blocked it with practiced precision. Refusing to relent, Qin Man launched another strike, causing Lu Heng to tumble off his horse. A soldier screamed, "General Lu Heng has been killed." The cry rippled through the ranks, shattering the soldiers' morale like glass underfoot. Chang Dao smirked and loudly declared his intent to finish Lu Heng. "Let's see what you're made of." Lu Heng, however, was far from defeated. Rising with a mixture of fury and resolve, he bellowed, "Come at me!" Chang Dao obliged, striking with his weapon. Though Lu Heng managed to block it, the sheer force sent him stumbling backward. Frustrated, Lu Heng called for reinforcements, but Chang Dao taunted him with a cruel grin. "Soldiers? What soldiers? You're alone now," Chang Dao mocked. Lu Heng froze, realizing the truth in those words. His elite troops, the pride of Black Rock City, had been reduced to chaos by traps, arrows, and a small band of mountain outlaws. Inwardly, humiliation burned like acid in his veins. He clenched his teeth, thinking, how did it come to this? Defeated by peasants on a mountain, despite the odds, Lu Heng refused to surrender. But before he could act, Xiao Yu dealt a decisive blow, knocking him to the ground once more. Standing over the battered general, Chang Dao pointed his axe at Lu Heng's face and smirked. "You underestimated us," he said, voice dripping with mockery. "You thought we'd be easy to crush, didn't you? Here's a tip for next time. Don't mess with the Toad Village." He leaned closer, grinning devilishly. "I like smashing people who think they're better than me. Kicking their faces is my favorite hobby." As Lu Heng glared in silence, Chang Dao relented. "But hey, I'm feeling generous. Go back to Zhu Banquan and deliver a message. He can pick any road he wants, but if it leads to Toad Village, he'll have to face me." Lu Heng, still on the ground, spat back. "Aren't you afraid of Black Rock City's revenge?" Chang Dao stood tall, raising his axe. "Bring it. I'll be waiting." Inside the village, Xing Zai and Wan Er watched the scene unfold with expressions of disbelief. Xing Zai murmured, "He really did it. 6 people defeated an army of hundreds." Wan Er nodded. Lu Heng underestimated him. He fell right into their traps. Xing Zai chuckled, recalling a line from Chang Dao's supposed poetry. "Do you remember his poem? That 9-word sentence?" Wan Er frowned slightly. "If that poem ever spread, I think it would discourage every poet in the empire. And heaven forbid he writes the rest of it." Meanwhile, Chang Dao and his team celebrated their victory. Xiao Yu, Qin Man, and Chang Dao grinned as they raised their fists triumphantly. That day, all the bandits across King Nyo Mountain bore witness to the Toad Village's strength. Chang Dao's crew pulled 10 carts laden with silver, jewelry, and goods into the village. The sheer spectacle left every observer awestruck. No other bandit dared so much as glance at the loot with greedy eyes. Later, San Yuan reported to Chang Dao. "There are 10 carts in total, master. 3 are filled with animal skins, 2 with bronze utensils, 2 with exotic herbs, and 3 with expensive fabrics. There are also horses and weapons among the spoils." Chang Dao nodded thoughtfully. "Good. Bring everything into the village." He then ordered San Yuan to bury the head of the Zhu village master with dignity. San Yuan hesitated but nodded. "Understood." Back in the village square, Chang Dao called on the system. It responded promptly, congratulating him on completing 10 robberies. "Swift work, indeed," the system goddess remarked. "But She paused dramatically. I have to ask, are you robbing or doing charity? Some of these spoils include sticks, a button, and even a rabbit. Chang Dao winced. Details, details. The system continued, listing his acts of kindness, such as handing out bags of grain and helping lost travelers find their way. Her tone dripped with sarcasm as she asked, are you trying to open a charity fund or something? Finally, the goddess snapped her fingers. The commander summoning stage is now unlocked. You'll need 10,000 fear points to summon your first commander. Chang Dao's thoughts raced. I only have 3,000 fear points. How am I supposed to get the other 7,000? Determined, Chang Dao resolved to figure it out. His musings were interrupted by San Yuan's inventory report. The winter loomed, and food supplies were running low. We'll trade the spoils for food, Chang Dao decided. San Yuan nodded but mentioned that finding reliable trade partners might prove difficult. Chang Dao suggested reaching out to Miss Su's family, considering her connections. San Yuan hesitated. It's risky. If we lose her favor. Chang Dao shrugged, grinning mischievously. Then we'll just have to charm her again. Don't worry, I've got this. Chang Dao Lei paced the room, pondering aloud the peculiar silence from Su Ying's family. The ransom they had promised was still unpaid, and there had been no news of resolution to Su Ying's problems. Speculating that trouble might be brewing on her side, Chang Dao Lei decided he would personally investigate the matter when time allowed. He mulled over the absence of news about Su Ying and the potential worth of chili in Yuzhou City, wondering if Su Ying's stepmother had interfered. The next morning, Chang Dao Lei strolled to Xing Zhai's room, calling for him. The silence was unsettling. When he opened the door, the room was empty, and Xing Zhai and Wan Er were gone. A letter lay on the table. Picking it up, Chang Dao Lei read its contents. A farewell from Xing Zhai, expressing hope to cross paths again someday. Chang Dao Lei sighed, his mind shifting to the sword Xing Zhai had left behind. He had always dreamed of owning a sword, imagining himself standing dramatically by a river in a white robe, resembling a cultivator from legend. Yet, swords in this era were more ceremonial than practical. With advancements in forging technology, heavy weapons like long spears, bronze axes, and oversized swords dominated the battlefield. Swords, with their delicate craftsmanship and high maintenance, were symbols of nobility, scholars, and famed individuals rather than tools of war. Chang Dao Lei wondered about Xing Zhai's social standing, trying to categorize him among the classes of society. On the road to Jingzhou City, Wan Er hurried to catch up with Xing Zhai. Why did you leave the sword for Chang Dao Lei? She asked, perplexed. Xing Zhai smiled casually. It's just a sword, he replied, brushing off her concerns. But that's no ordinary sword, she pressed. It's a royal sword. Xing Zhai's smile widened, but he said nothing more. Back in Toad Village, San Yuan approached Chang Dao Lei, reporting that someone was waiting outside the village gates. Chang Dao Lei followed San Yuan to the watchtower, curious about the visitor. Who is it? Chang Dao Lei asked, peering down at the man standing outside. San Yuan replied, his name is Lai Jia. He's the boss of the Wolf Gang, a gang from Black Rock City with about 100 to 200 members. Chang Dao Lei raised an eyebrow. Why would Lai Jia come here? We've never dealt with the Wolf Gang before. San Yuan shrugged, equally puzzled. Maybe Zhu Banquan sent him to negotiate for the birthday gifts. Chang Dao Lei laughed, finding the idea amusing. Negotiate? After we robbed them? He shook his head. What's Lai Jia's play here? San Yuan mentioned Lai Jia's reputation for pride. There's a story about how Han Huizhou once summoned him. Lai Jia stood silent for 2 hours, waiting for Han to speak first. Chang Dao Lei smirked. I like proud people, he said, stretching. Let him wait. I'm taking a nap. It's a fine day after all. Outside the village, Lai Jia was growing restless under the blazing sun. Sweat dripped down his face as mosquitoes buzzed around him. Why would anyone willingly live in these mountains? He grumbled, swatting at the air. In the city, the Wolf Gang dealt with nobles and dignitaries, considering themselves far superior to mountain bandits. Yet here he was, waiting outside a village gate like a commoner. Lai Jia cursed under his breath. Have they no manners? Not even a greeting? Maybe they're planning some grand welcome ceremony for me, he muttered sarcastically. As time dragged on, Lai Jia shouted toward the gates, introducing himself. His patience had worn thin. I'm Lai Jia of the Wolfgang. Open the gate, I want to talk. Inside, San Yuan heard Lai Jia's call and turned to Chung Dao Lei, who had just woken from his nap. Should we let him in now? San Yuan asked. Chung Dao Lei stretched lazily. Fine. Let him in before he gets a heat stroke. Let's see what he has to offer. When the gates finally opened, Lai Jia was visibly relieved, muttering a thanks to the heavens. San Yuan greeted him cordially, leading him into the village. Inside, Lai Jia looked around, taking in the modest surroundings. So, this is Toad Village, he said, a note of disdain in his voice. In the meeting room, Lai Jia and San Yuan sat across from each other. Lai Jia remarked on San Yuan's career change, from housekeeper in Black Rock City to manager of a bandit village. Quite the downgrade. San Yuan chuckled. Not a downgrade, a promotion. I run things here. Lai Jia got to the point. Zhu Banquan is willing to redeem the birthday gifts for 20,000 coins, he said. I'll be the guarantor. It's a generous offer. San Yuan's polite smile didn't waver. Generous? I disagree. Those gifts are worth far more than that. Lai Jia scoffed. Generous, considering you stole them from Lu Heng. They're not even yours to sell. San Yuan leaned back, unbothered. We're mountain bandits. What we steal becomes ours. That's the rule of the mountains. Lai Jia stared at him in disbelief. Shameless, he muttered. At that moment, Chung Dao Lei entered the room, draped in a black hooded cape and exuding an aura of intimidation. His piercing gaze sent a chill through the room as he took over the conversation. We want 100,000 coins for the gifts, Chung Dao Lei declared, his voice firm and unwavering. Take it or leave it. Lai Jia blinked, stunned by the bold demand. 100,000? Chung Dao Lei leaned forward, smirking. Do you agree or not? Lai Jia's face twisted in disbelief at the hefty demand of 100,000 coins. Are you out of your mind? He shouted, stunned. Yet, Chung Dao Lei's tone carried a weight that sent shivers down Lai Jia's spine. The rumors of Chung Dao Lei's alleged cannibalistic tendencies resurfaced in Lai Jia's mind, particularly as Chung Dao Lei, seemingly unbothered, dragged Shinji into the room. Shinji let out exaggerated cries for help, adding tension to the already strained atmosphere. Faced with Chung Dao Lei's intimidating presence, Lai Jia hastily agreed to the demand. San Yuan stepped in, smoothly explaining the terms. You'll pay the ransom in installments. Start with 30,000 coins up front as a down payment, and the rest can be settled over time. Installments, Lai Jia echoed, confused. San Yuan explained further. You can use goods like salt, cloth, and grain to cover the payment. We'll charge a 20% toll on every cart passing through King Nyo Mountain until the debt is fully paid. Of course, we'll need a signed contract to seal the deal. Lai Jia hesitated but confirmed. So, with the down payment, I can take back all the birthday gifts. Correct, San Yuan replied confidently. Make the 30,000 payment, sign the contract, and the gifts are yours. In another room, Shinji leaned against the wall, fidgeting. When can we go out? He asked, clearly bored. Chung Dao Lei chuckled, gesturing toward the door. We'll wait until San Yuan finishes fleecing the Wolfgang leader. Then we'll head to Yuzhou City. Shinji smirked, teasing, What's the rush? You miss your wife already. Chung Dao Lei rolled his eyes but admitted. 2 reasons. 1, I want to check on Su-Ying. 2, it's been ages since I visited a city. Can't a bandit enjoy a bit of civilization? Meanwhile, in Flying Tiger Village, Gao sat by a stream happily fishing. He had just caught a few fish and was drying them when Lao Air's frantic shouting startled him. As Gao turned, the fish slipped from his hands, plopping into the water. Lao Air, Gao roared, glaring as the pot of fish sank. Lao Air, panting from his sprint, barely managed to blurt out, Toad Village? Notice? Again, Gao, now thoroughly annoyed, grabbed Lao Air by the collar and mockingly pretended to choke him. You made me lose my fish, you idiot, he growled. Lao Air flailed and begged for mercy. Let me go. I'm sorry. Once Gao released him, Lao Air gasped for air and explained. The notice says we should plant chili. They're claiming 1 kilogram of chili can be exchanged for 1 kilogram of grain. Gao snorted, clearly unimpressed. Ridiculous. Who would believe that nonsense? Lao Er, however, persisted. But Little White Wolf from Pearl Blossom Village and the Bald Head Bandits took seeds too. Even I got some for half an acre. Let me plant them. Gao crossed his arms. No space. We're planting beans this year. Come on, Lao Er pleaded. If the rumors are true, we'll make a fortune. Just a small patch of land. Finally, Gao relented, gesturing toward a small plot near the village hall. Fine, plant your chilies there. But don't come crying to me when nothing grows. 3 days later, Sanyuan approached Chang Dao Lei with news. Someone from Black Rock City has delivered the down payment, he reported. Good, Chang Dao Lei said with a grin. Make an inventory. What's in it? Sanyuan listed the items. 10,000 copper coins, salt, iron, and grain. Chang Dao Lei nodded approvingly. Send my thanks to General Lu Heng for his patronage. The handover went smoothly, and soon after, Lu Heng took the birthday gift straight to Yuzhou City, reflecting Zhu Bangquan's growing desperation to appease the city lord. In Yuzhou City, inside the Su family manor, 2 individuals conversed in hushed tones. Huang Yuanwei is 48, has no heirs, and his wife passed away last year, one said. Marry Su Ying to him, and she'll be his first wife. But she's only 17, the other protested. Her age doesn't matter, the first replied coldly. Her fiancé's family is ruined, and she's been defiled by bandits. She should count herself lucky that Huang is willing to marry her at all. Outside the room, Zhaoi, Su Ying's loyal maidservant, listened with a heavy heart. Her expression was grim as she hurried away to find Su Ying. In the garden, Su Ying was feeding birds when Zhaoi rushed toward her. Miss Su, Zhaoi exclaimed. They're planning to marry you off to an old man named Huang. Su Ying sighed, her calm demeanor unshaken. I've heard, she said softly. Zhaoi's frustration boiled over. You're really going to marry someone as old as your grandfather? Su Ying gave a faint smile. After everything that's happened, it's good enough that someone is willing to marry me. Besides, I'll still be the first wife. Zhaoi's eyes filled with tears. But, will your heart truly be happy? Su Ying's smile faltered. She fell silent before finally whispering, I'll be fine. At the gates of Yuzhou City, villagers gathered around a poster. Chang Dao Lei, born in Toad Village, King Nyo Mountain. Nicknamed Toad King. Someone read aloud. The description continued, mentioning his square mouth, wide face, and a black beard under his jaw. Another villager scoffed, cruel and murderous. There's a bounty of 100 coins for anyone who catches him. Meanwhile, Chang Dao Lei, disguised in fine clothes and riding a thin horse, heard about the bounty. His reaction was nonchalant, even amused. Only 100 coins? He muttered with a smirk. I'm worth more than that. As Shinji examined the wanted poster, he tilted his head and remarked, Doesn't look much like you, boss. How do they plan on catching you? Chang Dao Lei smirked. Let's see how far their suspicions go, he said, leading the way into the city. As they approached the gate, the guards noticed Chang Dao Lei's confident demeanor and stopped them. You there? One of the guards said, narrowing his eyes. You look suspicious. Before Chang Dao Lei could respond, Shinji stepped in smoothly. My nephew here is just eager to enjoy the city's sights. Surely you gentlemen can accommodate us. Shinji slipped a gold coin into the guard's hand with practiced ease. The guards exchanged a glance, their suspicion lessening but not entirely gone. Names and where you're from? One asked. After a brief hesitation, Chang Dao Lei answered, I'm Oba from a small village near King Nyo Mountain. This is my uncle Aoi. He gestured at Shinji. We're visiting friends in the city. The guards raised an eyebrow at the peculiar surname but eventually waved them through. Keep your heads down, one of them advised. Bandits from King Nyo Mountain have been causing us trouble lately. We're always on alert. Once inside Yuzhou City, Chang Dao Lei marveled at its prosperity. It's bustling here, he commented, scanning the busy streets and colorful stalls. Let's find a place to eat first, Shinji suggested, already eyeing the signs of nearby restaurants. At the Four Ocean building, they were greeted by the owner, Zhao Er. Chang Dao Lei, in his usual commanding tone, ordered, Bring me half a caddy of wine and 2 caddies of beef. Zhao Er hesitated, bowing politely. Apologies, sir, but we don't have beef here. We do have a liquor shop, but I'm not sure what you mean by wine. Shinji intervened, taking charge. Forget the beef. Prepare a bedroom for us, move our horses to the backyard, and feed them well. Also, bring 2 pots of huangjiu, half a caddy each of mutton and pork, and a fish soup. Quickly. Zhao Er nodded. Right away, sir. Please be patient. It won't take long. After some time, the food arrived. Zhao Er wished them a pleasant meal, adding, If there's anything else you need, call for me anytime. Shinji handed over more gold coins, but before Zhao Er could leave, Shinji asked, What other dishes do you serve? Zhao Er proudly listed several items, but Shinji's discerning eye noted the limitations of their culinary techniques. Everything's either steamed or boiled, he muttered. No barbecue, barely any frying. They must be saving oil and salt. Meanwhile, Changdao Lei saw opportunity in the limited menu. Ideas for introducing new foods, hot pot, street snacks, even exotic beach cuisine raced through his mind. Interrupting his thoughts, Zhao Er mentioned something intriguing. We recently acquired a new ingredient, but it's rare, and customers haven't been buying it much. Changdao Lei raised an eyebrow, curiosity piqued. What is it? Chili, Zhao Er said. Have you heard of it? Feigning ignorance, Changdao Lei replied, Never heard of it. Zhao Er explained, The taste is fascinating. Even the Lord of Loi City requested half a kilo after trying it, but we only have 10 kilos in stock. My wife bought it from an overseas merchant, a real treasure, unique in the empire. Changdao Lei smiled, hiding his amusement. Fascinating. But for now, just bring the rest of the food. As Zhao Er left, Shunji leaned closer. This chili must have come from Suing, he speculated. Why are they claiming it's from someone else? Changdao Lei ignored the question and redirected the conversation. Why did I bring you to the city and not someone else? Shinji grinned smugly. Because I'm clever and can advise you on anything. Changdao Lei sighed, already regretting his choice. We're not here to play around. Focus. We have 2 tasks. Assess the Su family's situation and investigate slave trading to bring some people back to the base. Which one are you taking? Without hesitation, Shinji chose the more difficult mission, spying on the Su family. Annoyed, Changdao Lei cursed under his breath. Fine, go figure out where slaves are being sold in the afternoon. Confirm the numbers and return to the stronghold to fetch the money. And don't wander around too much. Shinji grinned mischievously. Oh, and I'm buying 2 flower pattern dresses for Ling Er. Changdao Lei tossed a small pouch of silver at him. Settle the accounts when you're done. And don't make me regret this. I might not come back tonight, Shinji teased as he left. Once Shinji was gone, Changdao Lei summoned a waiter. The young man approached politely. How can I help you, sir? Changdao Lei hesitated for a moment before the waiter leaned in, guessing his intent. Looking for a brothel, sir? Changdao Lei flushed. Shoo, keep your voice down. The waiter smirked knowingly. The best one in Loi City is Huiyuan Building. Later, at Huiyuan Building, Changdao Lei entered, feeling a mix of excitement and curiosity. A woman approached him, her tone warm and inviting. What elegance! Such smooth charm, she said, her eyes sparkling. You've warmed my heart already. Changdao Lei chuckled, leaning into the moment. Well, let's not waste any time. Show me what Loi City has to offer. Changdao Lei entered the brothel, taking in the lively atmosphere. The air was rich with fragrance and laughter, and the elegant decor added to its allure. This really is a good place for fun, he thought to himself, his delight evident. But before he could fully immerse himself in the surroundings, his eyes caught sight of a familiar figure. His expression shifted immediately as he approached the man with swift, deliberate steps. Placing a firm hand on the man's shoulder, Changdao Lei called his name, Shinji. Shinji flinched, turning to see Changdao Lei standing behind him. The shock was evident on his face, and the air between them turned tense. Changdao Lei struggled to maintain composure, caught off guard by the encounter. What are you doing here? He finally asked, his voice laced with irritation. Before Changdao Lei could continue, Shinji blurted out, I'm a sinner. I shouldn't be here. He hung his head low, feigning remorse. Seizing the moment, Chung Dao Lei narrowed his eyes. I trusted you, Shinji. Is this how you repay me? Spending the village's money on this? Shinji's face fell. No, you misunderstand, he stammered. I just passed by and decided to have a look. Chung Dao Lei snorted. Passed by? Don't insult my intelligence. I've been following you, Shinji. Shinji looked utterly miserable. Fine, I was wrong, he admitted. But please don't tell Ling Er. I'll leave right away, I promise. Chung Dao Lei smirked, the corner of his mouth curling mischievously. Oh, no need to leave so soon, he said, his tone dripping with mock kindness. Since we're already here, let's take our time. After all, we should examine just how ugly this place really is. Shinji's eyes widened in disbelief, but before he could argue, a group of courtesans began performing, filling the room with the sound of instruments and graceful dancing. Nearby, patrons talked and laughed over their drinks. One man leaned back, asking, Did you hear about that courtesan being ordered again? I heard the guy who wrote her a poem made a fortune and got promoted. The group burst into laughter, their voices carrying over the music. Rumors, someone said. The only reliable news these days. Shinji leaned toward Chung Dao Lei. Should we call for an escort with some wine? He whispered. Chung Dao Lei shot him a glare. Get lost, he snapped. As they sat listening, the conversation shifted to the city gates. A patron spoke up. Did you see the notice? They're looking for the Toad King. The Toad King? Someone else scoffed. Who doesn't know about him by now? Lu Hong couldn't do a thing against him, and now there's a 150 tael reward for his head. Imagine never having to worry about food or drink again. A courtesan chimed in. I heard he's 22 feet tall and wields an axe that weighs 300 catties. Another man, slurring his words, added, Not only that, but he knows magic. 5 thunder spells. And he can hear people talking from miles away. Chung Dao Lei stiffened, anxiety creeping into his mind as he listened to the exaggerated rumors. A man in the corner chuckled. Has anyone even seen the Toad King? He turned to another man, Zhu, and asked, What about you? Have you seen him? Zhu, puffing out his chest, launched into his tale. Of course, I've seen him. I was passing through Toad Ridge when I heard this deafening cry. A man came down from the sky, declaring himself the Toad King. We fought for 30 rounds before I was distracted and lost by 1 move. The courtesans burst into laughter. You? Better than Lu Hong? One teased. Another courtesan interjected. Master Zhu's swordsmanship is excellent. I trust his skills. Zhu bristled. I was caught off guard, that's all. Next time, I'll take him down and restore justice to Loi City. From behind, Shinji let out an audible chuckle. Zhu turned sharply, his face reddening with anger. What's so funny? He demanded. Shinji stopped laughing, startled by Zhu's reaction, and fell silent. Chung Dao Lei elbowed Shinji, flashing an awkward smile at Zhu. Don't mind him, Chung Dao Lei said. But honestly, are you sure you met the Toad King? Zhu glared. Who are you to doubt me? Chung Dao Lei straightened. I'm Oba, he declared. People from Jianghu call me the Gentle Hatchet. The crowd murmured in curiosity, repeating the name. Chung Dao Lei felt a pang of regret for choosing such a ridiculous alias, but he maintained his composure. Zhu laughed. Gentle Hatchet, huh? Doesn't matter to me. I'm only here for the lady. Don't tell me you're interested in her too. Chung Dao Lei's irritation flared. And if I am? He retorted. The crowd chuckled, teasing Chung Dao Lei. Look at him, one said. He doesn't look like he belongs here. Where's he even from? Chung Dao Lei ignored the taunts, his sharp gaze silencing some of the mockery. From the chatter, Chung Dao Lei gleaned details about the lady in question. Her name was Lu Zhaihong, once the prime daughter of the Lu family. Her father had been a military officer tasked with defending the harbor from pirates. However, when it was discovered that he had made secret deals with the pirates, he was executed by the city master, leaving Lu Zhaihong enslaved. Now 28, Lu Zhaihong had become the chief courtesan, her status reduced from aristocrat to a 4th-class pariah. To meet her required a hefty sum of copper coins, an original poem to amuse her, and an offer of wine to coax her from behind a curtain. Chang Dao Lei listened intently, pondering his next move. He had come to this city to assess the Su family and acquire slaves. But now, he wondered if there was another opportunity hidden behind that curtain. If someone succeeded in pleasing Miss Lu, she would typically declare herself too tired to continue and ask the suitor to return the next day. This cycle would repeat 3 or 4 times, leaving the outcome entirely up to fate. If someone hoped to advance further and share her bed, they would need to pay an exorbitant sum. Even so, countless admirers lined up, willing to part with their wealth for the mere chance. Elsewhere, Zhu approached Lu Zhaihong's maidservant, anxiously inquiring if the esteemed courtesan was available that day. Meanwhile, Chang Dao Lei, seated in a corner, calmly requested ink from a nearby courtesan. She nodded gracefully, addressing him as young master, and quickly left to fulfill his request. As Chang Dao Lei began working on his poem, Shinji appeared at his side, bewildered. "What are you doing?" he asked. Nearby, a man smirked, commenting that Chang Dao Lei was foolish to dream of meeting the lady. Chang Dao Lei, unbothered, continued writing, but his focus was momentarily disrupted by a distant voice cursing the poor quality of a literary work. The man shouted that even children could do better. Chang Dao Lei spared him only a fleeting glance before ignoring him entirely. Once Chang Dao Lei finished, he placed his poem alongside a small pouch of silver and called for the maidservant. She took the letter with a respectful bow. In the background, a group of men speculated about who Miss Lu might favor that day. They noted Zhu's relentless presence over the past 10 days and whispered about the fortune he must have spent. Others discussed Zhu's strategy, saying he had sought the help of a poetry expert. However, they warned that Miss Lu herself was a renowned poet, which made the task doubly difficult. The room buzzed with anticipation as they awaited the results. Suddenly, the maidservant reappeared, bowing respectfully as she called out, "Mr. Wu." The crowd fell silent, stunned by the announcement. She continued, "Miss Lu invites you inside." The revelation hit the room like a thunderclap. Zhu's face twisted with disbelief, while others stammered in shock, unable to comprehend the news. Chang Dao Lei, basking in their reactions, smiled mischievously. He gave Zhu a friendly slap on the back, raised a peace sign, and strolled confidently toward the private room. Zhu, fuming with jealousy, grumbled about the countless days he had spent courting Miss Lu. He mentioned his positive interaction with her the day before, but the others speculated that Chang Dao Lei's poem must have been exceptional. Zhu, confused and frustrated, demanded to know what poem they were referring to. One man pointed out a piece of paper stuck to Zhu's back. As Zhu peeled it off, he realized it bore an image of a toad. Gasps rippled through the group. Someone stammered, "The Toad King? Could he be here?" Another man whispered about the warnings he had heard earlier that the Toad King possessed a 1,000-mile vision and unmatched hearing. Zhu's face darkened as he read the note beneath the drawing. It mockingly declared the image eye-catching and pleasing to the ears. Inside Lu Zhaihong's room, Chang Dao Lei entered to find her reciting poetry. She asked if the verses she had just read were his creation. Chang Dao Lei smiled warmly and politely corrected her, asking her to address him by his name. "Call me Chang Dao," he said, his tone casual and friendly. Lu Zhai complied, and he responded with a grin that hinted at his confidence. As they sat in silence, Chang Dao Lei's thoughts wandered. He mused about how Lu Zhai must have been stunning as a 16-year-old before her fall from grace. Though still beautiful, he found himself pondering the wasted years and her current life. Lu Zhai gently reminded Chang Dao Lei that it was getting late, interrupting his reverie. He interpreted her poetic remarks as an indirect way of asking him to leave, which he found disappointing. What a waste of money to be dismissed like this, he thought bitterly. Lu Zhai asked him directly what his intentions were. Chang Dao Lei slowly approached the curtains surrounding her bed, his curiosity outweighing his better judgment. Despite her pleading for him to behave, he reached out and pulled the curtain aside. Lu Zhai screamed in shock. Chang Dao Lei stared at her, studying her features. "The rumors were exaggerated," he murmured. "Still, she's quite pretty." He assured her not to be afraid, promising he wouldn't harm her. But Lu Zhai found his calm demeanor unsettling and begged him to step back. As the tension rose, a shadow moved behind Chang Dao Lei. Suddenly, a man leapt out of hiding, tackling him onto the bed and pressing a knife to his neck. The man sat on top of Chang Dao-lei, preventing him from moving. "Shall I kill him?" the man asked Lu Zhai coldly. Lu Zhai hesitated, her voice trembling as she pleaded, "No, don't kill him." Chang Dao-lei, unfazed, smirked. "So, there's already a man in her room," he said sarcastically. The man, who introduced himself as Meng Ziyun, tightened his grip on the knife. "Why waste words? You're going to die," he growled. Chang Dao-lei, sensing his life hanging by a thread, quickly declared, "I can save the Lu family." Lu Zhai's eyes widened, and she immediately ordered Meng Ziyun to stop. The knife's tip hovered dangerously close to Chang Dao-lei's neck before Meng reluctantly withdrew it. Moments later, tea was served, and the trio sat tensely at the table. Lu Zhai, doubtful, demanded to know Chang Dao-lei's identity and how he planned to save her family. Chang Dao-lei, ever composed, deflected the question by turning it back on her. He asked about Meng Ziyun's presence and whether he could be trusted. Meng Ziyun bristled, but Lu Zhai intervened. She explained that Meng was her father's adopted son, trained in martial arts and fiercely loyal. He had protected her since their family's downfall. Chang Dao-lei's mind raced as he connected the dots. He realized Meng Ziyun's identity matched that of a skilled warrior who had also been demoted to the status of a slave following the Lu family's tragedy. With a new understanding of the situation, Chang Dao-lei prepared to make his move. It became evident to Chang Dao-lei that after escaping from prison, Meng Ziyun had come straight to Lu Zhai. Suspicion clouded Chang Dao's thoughts as he feared Ziyun might harbor improper intentions toward Lu Zhai, trying to transform her from his adoptive sister into something more. "Shameless," Chang Dao muttered under his breath, glaring at Ziyun. Lu Zhai, eager for answers, demanded to know Chang Dao's identity. With a dramatic flourish, Chang Dao claimed he was none other than the Toad King from the Toad village of King Nyo Mountain. Ziyun's expression soured. "A mountain bandit? Disgusting," he spat. Lu Zhai's curiosity deepened, and she directly asked, "Are you Chang Dao?" Ziyun interjected with a warning, declaring that the real Toad King could defeat General Lu Hong in one move. "There's no way you're him," Ziyun sneered, gripping his weapon tightly. "If you're lying, I'll cut off your head myself." Chang Dao smirked at their disbelief and retracted his earlier claim. "All right, you got me. I'm just a simple man from Toad Ridge," he admitted, introducing himself as Wu Oba Vader. The mention of the name Vader struck a nerve with Ziyun, whose eyes narrowed. "You dare use that name?" With a mischievous grin, Chang Dao responded, "Yes, your good son has returned." Ignoring Ziyun's scowl, Chang Dao shifted his tone, expressing his admiration for General Lu Zhaihong's father. Though he had never met the man, he claimed to have long respected his leadership. "Your father was falsely accused," Chang Dao said solemnly. "And when my leader, the big boss, heard of it, he was furious." Lu Zhai's face softened. Despite Chang Dao's admission of being a mountain bandit, she was touched that he acknowledged her father's wrongful fate. She took comfort in believing that Chang Dao had a sense of justice. Chang Dao elaborated that the big boss had ordered no harm to come to the descendants of General Lu. "That's why I'm here," Chang Dao explained. "I've been sent to gather information and, if possible, rescue your family." Lu Zhai, hope flickering in her eyes, asked him how he planned to help. Chang Dao confidently replied, "Now that I have the information I need, I'll return to my stronghold, collect the funds, and rescue you. With the money, I can also redeem others who've been wronged." Lu Zhai was momentarily stunned, her voice trembling with emotion. She struggled to find the words, tears glistening in her eyes. Finally, she declared, "If you can save my family, I will serve you for the rest of my life as your slave, even in the next life." Chang Dao's mind reeled. Next life? He thought, alarmed. The idea of being born again, tied to such a promise, unsettled him. Meanwhile, the courtesans outside continued to gossip about the Toad King's rumored presence. Some expressed disbelief, while others speculated wildly about his legendary powers. Inside the room, Chang Dao and Lu Zhai remained deep in conversation when a maidservant approached Shinji outside. "The lady has requested your presence," the maid informed him, breaking his reverie. Shinji's face lit up with surprise and excitement. "Chang Dao really is generous," he muttered. marveling at the rare opportunity. As Shinji entered the room, he was greeted not by Lu Zhai's charm, but by the sharp blade of Meng Ziyun's sword. Shinji froze in fear and turned to Cheng Dao for an explanation. With his arms crossed, Cheng Dao introduced Ziyun. "This is Meng Ziyun, a loyal underling of General Lu. He doesn't trust me," Cheng Dao said bluntly. Then, addressing Shinji, Cheng Dao added, "Take him to the stronghold and bring back the money. You'll need it to free the others." Shinji hesitated. "And what about you?" "I've got other business in the city," Cheng Dao replied. "Don't worry, I'll contact you when I'm ready." Before leaving, Cheng Dao turned to Lu Zhai. He reminded her of her promise. "When you're free, don't forget your loyalty is mine." He then leapt through the window and vanished into the night. Later that evening, Cheng Dao prowled around the Su family residence, its grandeur and size making an impression. Why does a family with so much land and wealth create so much trouble for itself? He wondered. He puzzled over how to find Su Ying's room among the many within the estate. His musings were interrupted by two women walking past, their voices carrying snippets of a conversation that made Cheng Dao pause. One woman mocked Su Ying. "She thinks she's still the young miss of the family? The old man's bedridden, and now his wife runs the show." The other chimed in, sneering, "If she acts like a young miss around me, I'll show her my claws." Hiding behind a large rock, Cheng Dao listened intently. He deduced from their conversation that they had just come from Su Ying's room. Meanwhile, Su Ying sat on her front deck, surrounded by fireflies, tears streaming down her cheeks. Suddenly, a shadow caught her eye. Man perched atop the wall. Startled, she gasped. Cheng Dao, trying to maintain his balance, waved casually. "Yo," he greeted, before promptly slipping and crashing to the ground. Su Ying blinked, too shocked to speak as she watched him dust himself off. Cheng Dao smiled sheepishly. "Long night, isn't it?" he remarked. "Didn't think I'd find you awake too." Recognizing him, Su Ying frowned. "Why are you here?" she asked, her voice trembling. Thanks for watching, guys. Comment Flamingo and subscribe for future parts.